6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Staff's being completed all over the NFL as the Chargers officially have their OC and DC. Greg Roman will call the offense in Los Angeles. His last stint was in Baltimore. And Jesse Minter followed Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. Jesse Palmer of the NFL Network yesterday reported that both Joe Thuney and running back Jerick McKinnon are a slim chance to go on Sunday. But the Chiefs do feel very comfortable with Nick Allegretti filling in on what was the best center guard triangle in football. And the Giants snagging their second former Titans coordinator of the week in Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly's going to coach tight ends in New York, getting to work one-on-one with Darren Waller. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday morning and a very warm welcome to the middle of your week. We are Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW, brewed by 8th and Rose, 615-737-1045 with Tennessee Titans General Manager Ran Carthon sitting down with Titans Radio on the OTP. Some interesting things that he said that we will play for you. If you missed that conversation, go listen to it on the OTP. But we give you the highlights, and we give you 4 hours of great football, sports, and life lesson discussion. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer, I'm Will Bowling, streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.
Push, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. I woke up this morning and I thought, is 3HL in Vegas yet? Oh, of course, they're in Vegas.
Of course.
They landed, late in our time, but probably early there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, what's the first thing they did? Because the Voodoo Donuts I saw this morning on Twitter, they stopped by. And Ron Slay made it clear that if you did not stop by Voodoo Donuts, this was going to be a problem before we got on that flight. So I'm like, I wonder what they did when they got to Vegas.
He said that the devil made him go to Voodoo Donuts too, by the way.
Okay, that would make sense.
Tripped me out.
Voodoo ain't coming from heaven.
No, it is not. That is not coming there. But, man, what they need to make sure they're doing is catching. You don't want to get caught slacking going to Vegas with the lack of sleep.
Sure.
That's the first thing you can do. I would probably say he probably stayed up their afternoon show, but the morning starts early over at the Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, too, is depending on their schedule. You just don't want it by Friday. You do not want to be spent. That's it. Oh, my gosh.
You want to still be alive because the most time I ever spent in Vegas was 3 days, and that was enough.
What I was not okay with was Joe and Babs yesterday, y'all.
What about what happened?
Not okay with Joe saying he knows how to count cards.
I heard
he's
that.
He's going to signal to Babs.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
He said, and he was just, oh, my God, he gave the craziest story ever. It was like him and Babs are formulating a plan to signal to hit or not hit and stuff like that. He said, if I lose count, I'm like, Joe knows how to count cards? Of course Joe Easy know how to count cards. Blew my mind, but that's not smart. They got AI in those casinos, I'm sure now.
So you can't have your phone. Okay, pardon me, because I do not gamble. So you can't have your phone around. Or
you can have it around if you're going to text at the blackjack table where you count cards at.
Sure.
You can text in between hands and stuff like that. It cannot be on the table or while the game is going on. You can spin around and mess with your phone or something like that if you hadn't received a hand.
Got it.
But Joe is trying to wink and nod to Babs about counting cards.
Goodness.
Yeah, when they see your fingers out, he's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's 4 8s. They're gonna know that you're counting cards. You can't even attempt to count cards.
That is ridiculous.
Shout out to Joe for knowing how to count. Where they mess you up these days, though, is they recirculate each hand. So you get an opportunity like I shouldn't know this, but if you get the opportunity where I think most casinos will shuffle 3 or 4 decks. If they only do 3 or 4 decks and not re-enter the cards into the shuffle, then you can start counting.
Okay.
I don't know how to count. I honestly think it would complicate the game a little bit too much for me because when I know I got a surefire hit, I'm going to be doubling and tripling down every single. Sir, that is only a 8. You sure you want to double? Yes, I want to double down.
I want to double down. Dang it.
Yes. But yeah, Joe, he's not to count cards.
Dang, mathematician there. Oof.
I thought you were going to stop at one point and just say, I didn't know Joe knew how to count. My question is, who runs 3HL when he gets put in casino jail?
I don't know.
Which 3HL host is most likely to run Zone TV and run the show?
It's a great question.
I'd love to see Kirby trying to run
Oh.
Zone TV.
Goodness.
Well, he usually does still try to. He ends up failing in that endeavor, but he does still try to run Zone TV.
Yeah, because Brent was like convinced one person out of that group, there was just something that was going to go down. Oh, my God. I'm like, don't wish that into
You
existence.
shouldn't speak that into existence, Mayor. Why would he even bring that up? Why would he even bring that up? It's going to be him.
I know.
I'm telling you, it's going to be Mayor. He going to jail this week, y'all.
Hangover
Just
part.
throw it out
It
there.
was a lot
10.
easier going to Hoover, Alabama with that group. There were a lot less ways that the devil could tempt you with his voodoo.
I'm sure.
Voodoo Mama Juju.
Is anybody picking Savage? Like, Savage got to go to
No.
Charlotte on Friday. So
No.
He's been tested.
And he's too savvy. He knows how to handle his business. Like, I feel like he's been in too many situations. He's not going to.
He's passed a lot of tests.
Yeah.
Slay is
Yeah.
among the smartest
Yes.
people just that I know. Just he is. When you live in Europe for that long, you are tested. That's a lot more than 40 days in the wilderness.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime. That's a career in the wilderness.
you said Slay's been.
He has. He's been tested. He's come out on the other end.
Yeah, and there's so much truth in that. Will.
You live in Europe for that long, you get tested. I don't know.
Those,
I've heard a lot of his stories, both on and off air,
Right.
that are FCC compliant and some that maybe aren't. No, that's not true.
they just are what they are, but your life experiences, right?
That might be doing.
If that's the case, then I'm putting my money on Mayor. It's Mayor that's getting locked up.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. That was
I
my
would
money
agree.
from the start. From the start.
Respectfully, I would agree.
Respectful. It'll be a misdemeanor. It ain't gonna be nothing crazy.
Talk about speaking things into existence. I think
Misdemeanor,
Dawn
nothing
would go kicking and screaming so much that they just wouldn't want to deal
bad. Oh,
with it.
yeah. They'd be like, no, we're letting her go.
Brent would want to do it and allow himself to go to casino jail just to meet people and have stories to tell on the next day's show. Man, you guys wouldn't believe who I met yesterday.
Oh, goodness.
Man, this guy had one eye. All right? Wow. That's crazy.
No,
I asked him if he wanted to come on the show tomorrow. He said he was going to be predisposed. 615-737-1045.
What's your craziest jail tour?
Oh,
What's your
goodness.
craziest jail story? Call in right now.
Yeah.
I'm with her. I'm right there with
I'm
you.
with you. I'm with you on that.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my God. That
Who would bail him out is the question. That's the question.
who man?
I'm sure
Who out of
Kirby's-
those three?
Kirby probably
Or four?
secretly travels with like 10 grand in cash.
yes.
It just puts in the safe.
Just
Like,
has
oh
a
no, I'm
bag.
always ready. It is crazy
Yeah.
in the bag of Kirby's tricks on a trip like that. When I went to LA with him and we got there, just the two of us on our own, the first day in Los Angeles to set up everything before 3HL got there the next day, I think is the way it worked.
Yeah.
Or no, they got there late that night. They got there at like 11 and we were in LA at like 5 or 6, I think. Like the amount of things that guy has prepared in his bag. Like probably ancient like witch doctor treatments to like treat just the common cold. Like I don't know, but
He
the
probably
guy is
does.
prepared with genuinely everything. He's like, no, I've seen every ailment that any of you people can possibly have before you do a radio show.
It's like, is he ever the one that's sick that
No.
needs taken care of? That's amazing.
Not
Since
even.
he drinks Pepsi and smokes cigarettes, it's amazing.
Kirby probably has like a few apps on his phone. Like he's probably not, super savvy
Yeah.
with the apps, but one of those apps is a network of Bell's bondsmen in each city that he travels.
His heart gave up on him being a normal human years ago. Like at this point, his heart's on autopilot. Like, you take it from here. You'll be just fine.
Just cruise,
Meet me
baby.
at the end, baby.
That's
Whenever
right.
Yeah.
you decide,
Just cruise.
His heart got annoyed of arguing with Kirby,
Yes, it
like the rest
did.
of us.
Oh, me, oh, my.
That's great.
615-737-1045. Coming up this morning, Ran Carthon had a very interesting visit, long 45-minute conversation with Titans Radio on the OTP. We will play you some of that conversation because Ramon Foster was in the room for the conversation.
It was. It's very, I'm telling y'all, I know you're probably going to think, oh, well, of course, Mo, you're supposed to say that you had a conversation with him and all those things.
That's a good, what voice is that?
I don't know.
It's a new one.
He's using my making fun of people.
It kind of is like that.
It was.
Hey, buddy,
There
hope
it
you
is.
find your dad.
Get out. It's
What?
too early.
It sounds like the whale from Elf.
But what?
Oh, yeah.
But what's fascinating, the on-camera stuff and off-camera conversations, like if you're a Titans fan, and I'm saying this because I've seen it and heard them talk about the other places that they've been at, you're in good hands. Again, the product on the field that's all that matters in the end, right? I don't care what they say and everything, but the method in which they're going about this and how and what they're saying, like this front office, and Rand says it in the OTP episode, they have tiers and like stacks of players, like to where if they run into certain situations, they have an answer for it. It's so collaborative that you're gonna think it's corny with the stuff that they're saying, but it's so real though. You're in good hands. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel. If I was deeply embedded, and heck, I am now in this organization, you will see some stuff come to light. You're gonna be like, okay, I see why now they're going about this. A really dope, deep conversation. Not just with him. The Chad Brinker one was just as good too. A lot of answers to a lot of questions people have. You just get 40 minutes on each episode, and you're going to get all the answers you need.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. Also this morning, Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel at 7:20 previews some Tennessee hoops coming up tonight. Tennessee and LSU in the artist formerly known as Thompson Bowling Arena. So we'll do that in hour 2. Duke Manyweather is an offensive line trainer for the NFL Draft who is highly respected as one of the best offensive line coaches and teachers in that world. And he does a great job with this group called OL Masterminds. He is going to join us at 8:20. He has got a long list of offensive line prospects he is working with through the draft process, and that includes a couple of interior linemen who are of specific interest here to the Titans, and also a tackle that could be the pick at number 7, who is regarded by some as the number 1 tackle in the draft, and Olu Fashanu from Penn State. So we will talk to Duke about him coming up at 8:20 in hour 3 this morning. Rhett Bryan at Titans Radio joins us for his weekly visit at 9 o'clock. He'll be with us for the 9 and 9:20 conversations. And then our guy, Inky Johnson, Midweek Motivation, wraps up the show at the end of your Wednesday. But coming up next, Ran Carthon explains why him and Brian Callahan were not in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Here's his explanation next.
It's Ramon Foster for Secure Lawn, man. Yesterday, last couple of days, we had a bunch of just heat breaks and just weather breaks where it got a little warmer. So Secure Lawn came out to my house and hit me with my first round of weed control, man. Super awesome. And that's because they want to focus on a prime service to the existing customers so that future customers see how they operate. And you're probably wondering, what does prime mean to their team? It means having one of their team members properly trained and properly prepared to provide a prime service, supplying the customer with the expectation that will make them lifetime customers. They are local. They've been serving Middle Tennessee for over 20 years, and they're very punctual and make you sign no contracts. If you don't like the work that they do, fine. Let them go. Tell them, hey, I'm done with you guys, okay? If you don't have the greenest, the least weeds in your grass, and guess what? Call somebody else. But I promise you won't have to, all right? Get Secure Lawn over to your house real soon to spray some of their awesome sauce in your grass the same way as they did with mine and kill those pesky weeds yesterday. You can call them at 615-893-8455 or go to securelawn.com.
Kicking off the show on RKW, brewed by 8th and Rose, 615-737-1045. The best coffee in Nashville can be found on 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, or the Broadview at Vanderbilt. 8th and Rose Coffee cultivates community by the cup. Ramon Foster was a part of a Titans Radio sit-down conversation with General Manager Ran Carthon that had some interesting nuggets in it. Mike Keith, Coach Mack, Rhett Bryan, all a part of that conversation. If you want to hear it in its entirety, I would encourage you, if you are a Titans fan, to check out the OTP, the official Titans podcast, which is a must-listen for any Titans fans. 45-minute conversation, including one nugget I thought was particularly interesting, considering some of the criticism of Ran and Brian Callahan for not being at the Senior Bowl. What's going on?
I'm frozen.
Don't mind if you're in the F&M Bank chat. Just
if you're watching on 104.5 The Zone TV, one of our cameras is on the fritz. So there you go. That's what's happening, I guess.
Now we figured out we can just always replace
pretty
Ramon.
funny, though.
Anyone can be Ramon now if we just leave that camera frozen.
it's pretty funny.
Bert locked eyes with me. That's the reason I stopped.
Oh, you have a picture of Ramon just completely just gasping like someone just told him that his dog died. In the F&M Bank chat. So if you want to look at a really funny frozen picture of Ramon, there you go.
You got like 5 seconds before I fix it.
I love hers.
Lovely.
We'll put it up.
So this was Ran Carthon on why he didn't go to the Senior Bowl with Brian Callahan.
We're still building the staff, which is first and foremost, which is really important. Our job as scouts is to go out and find the players and help set the table, but it's also we need to have a direction. And what we want those players to look like, what type of schemes we want to run. And the only way we're able to do that is if we have coaches. And so I felt it was important for me to dedicate myself to Brian and be here and help him in any way possible. And the cool thing was he felt it was important for every coach that we may want to hire on the staff for me to get a chance to meet them, ask my questions for them to see if they're a culture fit for what we're trying to build here.
So that was Rand's initial answer about this. Coach Mack then made another point later in the interview about how it was one of his regrets when he was a head coach immediately after he got the job going to the Senior Bowl, because everyone wants to come congratulate you about going and getting a head coaching gig, and you can't actually watch the film. This was another answer from Ran and some more context on why he and Brian did not go to Mobile.
In this day and age, there's film, everything's recorded, so it's not like, no, we were not there in Mobile, but we're going to be able to go back and watch every practice, be able to watch every player. And then with the technology now, it's if you want to just hone in on one single player, we'll have the ability to just click that player and see every practice rep this person has had on special teams and every drill that they were in. So we'll be able to see it. It's not like the Senior Bowl will not be watched by the two of us. It's just at that moment we were not down in Mobile because, again, we're here trying to figure out this coaching staff, which is coming together nicely, I feel. And that's very, very important. That's very, very important because, again, if we're just out there scouting with no direction of the scouting, then, again, it goes back to what I talked about. Hunting at the same time isn't the same as hunting together. We're just all out there hunting because this is what we're supposed to do.
I think it's a fair answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's pretty much saying, let's not wait. I was just about to write that down. We can talk about it right now. Just don't waste time. Why are we not pointing in where we're trying to go and what we're looking for and how we're looking for it also? And he's right about that as far as the tape. They will have it broken down by player 55, player 2, player 17, all the way through every single guy. That tape will be in all 32 camps when it comes down to how they will be reviewing and scouting guys and stuff like that. I did think it was very unique hearing Coach Mack say that was probably one of the worst decisions he had as a head coach was to go to the Senior Bowl because here's the thing. There are other people down there who are looking for jobs. And they know if you are the new guy with the job, they're going to come talk to you about that, those types of things too. And, of course, with TV being there and the buzz and agents, he also mentioned that earlier too, speaking with agents and other scouts about what they had saw. They are well informed on it, but it really breaks down to the fact that, look, building this staff and how they're going to coach and what their expectations of a player is way more important than you having face value at the camp. At the Senior Bowl. They also acknowledged something. Mike Keefe, I'm not sure if we have that clip, brought up the fact that the Los Angeles Rams only sent 3 people.
3 people, yep.
To the Senior Bowl.
Including not their head coach and general manager.
Neither one of them.
Just scouts, yeah.
And they may have been more regional scouts. And then, you guys down south, closer to the Senior Bowl, let's go down and go. So it's not that the importance of the Senior Bowl isn't as high as it used to be. It's just that the business and operation of coaches can actually, be more remote instead of having to be hands-on and being in coaching drills and stuff like that. I saw, of course, Louis Riddick was saying, of course you get tested at the combine and those types of things, and having that on-the-field conversation with scouts and coaches are there and they share this type of information, you will get all the answers that you need. Hey, this guy only went hard for 2 plays. You can see that because Jim Nagy understands that also, is that they have to be transparent to keep the prestige of that bowl up.
Yeah, and I think he made it clear, too, that, look, there's plenty of technology in terms of if they want to zero in on even a specific player, they can watch every single rep that they took during Senior Bowl week, and obviously the game as well. But I think for this staff right now, that was the most important thing to get together at this moment, and then they can go back and look at everything that happened at the Senior Bowl in terms of guys that they're interested in. But building a staff for the first time together as a head coach and a newer GM, I think it was crucial that they did stay back and keep that focus. And we've seen the results because there's been several hires that have been made. But I think just being on that same page, too, because you got to put together your staff before you bring in the personnel you want, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that was a really good answer by Ran Carthon, a really honest answer, and shouldn't be faulted at all for not going down to the Senior Bowl.
I thought this part specifically was maybe the most interesting thing he said about profile tape. Mike Keith asked Ran Carthon about what does a Titans wide receiver look like? How are you guys going about deciding this is what we want at this position, this is the kind of player we want at that position? And Ran not only gave us info on that, he also told us why hiring a staff will change the draft board as they already have it made. This was Ran Carthon on the OTP.
I think we come up with that. We. Because again, I'm not drawing any plays. I'm not doing any schematics. I'm not making any halftime adjustments. I think if you look at what Brian has had in Cincinnati, which is what Zach brought over, with him from his time at the Rams, and I was a part of that transition period when Sean McVay came in with the Rams and Zach was on the staff. And one of the first meetings we had under Sean McVay was, hey, this is what our current roster looks like. Here's our evaluations on the current roster. And let's just use the receiver position as the example. But here's what we want in our X receiver. Here's what we're looking for our X receiver to look like. Here are the traits that we're looking for. And it was an education system on what it takes to be successful in the systems that they want to run, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing. We refer to them as profile tapes. So every position will have a profile tape as to what that position specific is that we need to have for us to build a successful, side of the ball, if you will. And so that's what we're going to do moving forward. And again, it shows you the importance of being able to have the coaches here in the building and be able to do those things. And we're going to meet as a full staff. We're in a very, very unique situation in being here in this city of Nashville, where it's pretty safe to say, probably with the exception of Cincinnati, because they have a very small scouting staff, every single one of our scouts live here with the exception of 2 people. And so it makes it that much easier for us to have these meetings with our coaching staff, for us all to get on the same page, for us all to speak the same language. So as we're out there looking at players, we know what it takes to play X in our scheme. We know what it takes to play Z. We know what it takes to play F. We know what the left tackle should look like, and on and on and on. And so that puts us in a unique situation where we can quickly get on the same page, as a new staff. Because the part about, where we're at right now, we just spent the entire last spring and fall scouting for a different scheme. So now with this, our board has to reset, and our board has to reset based off of the schemes that Brian Callahan and his staff want to run. And so we'll be put in a unique situation where we could do that quickly because all of our people live here.
So there are a couple different aspects of that are particularly interesting. Just the part about profile tape and how they will sit down as a staff and understand this is what an X receiver looks like in our offense. This is what a left tackle looks like in our offense. It's hard to scout players in Mobile without knowing what kind of players your staff is going to want when the staff doesn't exist yet. So I think that's interesting and a little peek behind the curtain of the collaborative process that this staff wants. I think the other aspect of that, too, is the note that all of their scouts live here except for 2.
That's huge.
And the fact that that conversation is still ongoing within the building and everyone's going to sit down together and hash those things out.
Yeah, that was big time, man. And then also the acknowledgement of change. They acknowledged that last year they were scouting for a totally different type of player. The board was set for Tim Kelly's style. It was set for what the Titans have potentially been doing for years, right? And now the fact they have to switch that up. Again, we got a lot of answers to a lot of things that I think we'll see play out. The thing that's super unique is this. Well, of course, you could ask, well, what does your left tackle look like? I could have asked that question, right? But it's one of those things is, well, we got to see what his availability is going to be either in the draft or free agency, because I don't think they have the left tackle they're looking for right now. That's what I think is super unique. And I immediately wrote down, the profile conversation. If we expect last year's profile to be somewhat what the draft gave us from Ran and even Vrabel last year, then you got to look at, okay, they have a Tajay type. I think that's probably a Ran type of guy and probably a Brian Callahan's type of dude. And, of course, we're still speaking about the O-line and stuff like that, right? Like, Peter was drafted as a left guard, but he played left tackle too. Depending on what Coach Bill Callahan does, he may actually stay left guard. You know what I'm saying? Just because their profile suggests this is how we're building our offensive line, and we got to see this play out too. This won't be hey, you're going to get a direct answer. I think when you see people in place, probably over the next 2 years, you will get an idea of what the identity of a Brian Callahan's led team is going to look like. And I think that's super unique that you can somewhat be patient in saying, we got to figure that out for him. He said earlier, it's about what we want to look like, what we want our profile player to look like. And he dove a little bit deeper to at some point in time by saying if there are injuries that come up during the season, and they do, you're not scrambling to go figure out who's available. Because if you have your list and tiers of what's next or who's next in line, hey, you in Albuquerque, New Mexico, we need you to sign this week because you fit our profile. That way, at least the tempo and what they're expected to play and look like doesn't change much at all. Again, the secret is there are no secrets, really. Mm-hmm. You understand what personnel is and how teams are supposed to look, and it's even better when your offensive and defensive coordinators know that stuff, too.
Yeah, it seems like there's definitely structure from the start with this new group and still building the coaching staff, obviously. But between Ran and Brian Callahan specifically, it's nice to know you were saying, like, there's no secrets. I do feel like in the past with the Mike Vrabel era, there was a lot that was unknown in terms of who was really doing what, right? Remember when Shane Bowen was the defensive coordinator, but not technically the defensive coordinator until the next year? There were so many questions surrounding that season of what the heck is going on. And then when you're not, able to get off the field at third down, whose problem is that? Is it Vrabel's because he's technically not named Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator? I remember there were so many times specifically under that regime that there were so many questions of who's doing what or what's happening or who's in charge. And I think it's nice and refreshing that Ran Carthon has kind of come out and say, hey, this is the structure. This is what we're looking for, whether it be the personnel or who's doing what, who's handling the business. I think that is refreshing not only to, the players probably, but the fans.
Yep.
Ran Carthon spoke about that communication and the ability to have an open dialogue within the room. And certainly we've learned a lot about why this move was made, why Mike Vrabel is no longer the coach. And Ran gave more insight into the kind of culture he and Brian Callahan are looking to create here in Nashville.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, like, the football part, and Coach Matt could attest to this, the football part, the X's and O's part, pretty much takes care of itself, right? You know who the good coaches are. You know where the good schemes are. But like I've always said, we care about the people You know, everybody talks culture, but culture is the people. You know, and so we want to make sure we're getting the right people. You know, and then you go through and you're interviewing people and you realize his connections, you realize my connections, and our ability to, you know, get people on the phone that can help us figure out the people, right? You can turn on the tape and see what the X's and O's are. There's only so many different football drills you can do to get you ready. But that's been our driving force, is to make sure that we're getting the right people. And I thought it was really cool of him, even the coaches that he has history with, you know, and not just saying, hey, I'm going to flat out hire this guy. It's no, I want to get this guy in front of you so you can feel him and also cover his blind spots. If it's someone he's worked with for so long, like, hey, you know, did I miss anything? Am I missing anything? And again, I'm not in there asking questions, hey, can you talk me through this protection and how would you adjust? I'm more so listening, seeing, you know, and I'm looking at him, understanding what he wants and how they're going to be able to fit in with him, not only schematically, but how they're going to be able to support him throughout the building.
Everything is going to be a conversation.
Yeah.
In that building.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing with Ran Carthon that he's made clear always is, I want communication. You know, the collaboration use of words, you know, last year, I think it's different this year, just because I really do believe that Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan, they're not always going to be on the same page, but I think they're always going to be comfortable with like putting out exactly what they're thinking and then coming together and figuring out how can we make this work the best for the team. And I feel like if you have that structure from the top and they're that forthcoming about it early on in the process of building this new staff, then it is a lot more easy to follow what's going on than how they're going to build this team, because that's the biggest question when it's all said and done. And both of them have excellent background in connections because they've been in the league for so long. You ask other people about Ran Carthon in the business, they'll be the first to tell you like, oh yeah, Ran, he's awesome. Like, had a chance to meet him and so, and he's connected to this guy. And I feel like the same for Brian Callahan. Everybody you've heard talk about him, whether they be players or former coaches, they say the same thing. So I think it's a good match from the top, you know, building this team right now.
What I also got from it too was they're not just hiring people just to hire.
Yeah.
The fact that Ran was able to be brought in and vet some of the people that Brian wanted to interview, I thought was super unique, man. And just hearing their breakdown, and that was another thing that we talked about in the room too, is Ran was like, I'm not looking for yes, man, and neither is Brian. If you're good for us, be good to us also. And that's going to handle itself. I don't think you're going to say, hey, he got a room full of his buddies, because that's why they're doing these checks and balances. To say, Coach, if you don't like him, say something. And he made that very apparent in the room with us, Ran did, that, look, this staff has to work, and they have to be workers also. And to be in a position to where they can build this thing up the right way for the long-term effects of watching it be prosperous, he reiterated that time and time again. This is not just for a year to year.
Right.
This is for a long stretch of time here in Nashville, and that's a part of it, is not just hiring people because they have a name.
Mm-hmm.
Although Brian Callahan was not an NFL quarterback, there is still a former player perspective in the room with Ran Carthon. Ramon asked Ran about how he uses that former player perspective every day as the job of general manager. We'll play that audio coming up next. RKW is brewed by 8th the Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in hour 2, Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel in 30 minutes. Always one of our best. Talk some Tennessee hoops as they host LSU tonight, plus a win for the NCAA, but they may have won the battle. However, we get more info that they're likely going to lose the war against Tennessee. Details on that coming up in 15 minutes. Your phone calls at 615-737-1045. Ramon, you asked Ran Carthon about how his former player perspective helps him as general manager.
Yeah.
I thought this was an interesting response from Ran in the official Titans podcast, the OTP, as it is affectionately known, where you can subscribe wherever you download podcasts. 45-minute sit-down conversation with Titans Radio and Ran Carthon. This was Ran as asked by Ramon about the player perspective helping him in a front office job.
Ran, on this side of it as a former player, when you got to the front office and the scouting and just building teams and just setting guys out to be their own, was there certain stuff that you saw as a player, as a younger guy in this league, that you said, if I ever get the opportunity, I'm going to do these things? And is this why you're forward thinking and the stuff that you've done here in Nashville so far?
Well, my playing experience played a huge part in how I plan to do business moving forward. I think I've said, a lot in the past about not wanting to discuss family business in the public. You saw that. Well, I saw it throughout my career, guys' contracts being talked about in the media, being talked about in the locker room. And just, want to keep our family business in-house. There's going to be enough noise from the outside that can add, gas to the fire, if you will, because those are contentious moments, when you're talking to a player and players want you to see their value and their worth, so to speak, but then there's a market for that, and having to get them to understand. So those can be contentious moments, from within the house. You don't need anything from the outside playing a part. But then also, a player like myself who was on 5 teams in 3 years, kind of bounced around, so I've been cut in every which way possible. And I always said that we would want to take a humane approach to that process, and just show everybody the proper respect, no matter if they're the number 1 player on the roster or the 53rd player on the roster.
As another former player, Ramon, what sticks out to you from what he says there?
Taking a humane approach to it. A lot of people like to ridicule the process of how you hire and fire people, right? And Rand's approach to it, I think, is the best way about it, because you never know when you're going to have to revisit with the player. You cut a player before he's going to, or as soon as he get off the practice field for you in a situation like that, you somewhere, demean these guys, and that's what Rand is taking from it. And also the conversation that a lot of the stuff that comes out of the building is probably going to stay in-house now. There was a lot of conversation around this Titans organization for a while as far as what players were saying, what coaches were saying, what the locker room is like and stuff like that. And I think when you have a coach like Coach Callahan and Rand pretty much have to be on the same page by establishing this way of operating, that, look, family business is family business. We got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. And I think that somewhat centralizes everything when it comes down to the play on the field. If the play is good and everything handles itself, then we ain't got to talk about nothing else. And I think that's where they're trying to get to. It gives an appreciation for what I continue to say again and again. Right, y'all? The players matter. And I think when you make the players and empower them to the idea that they can roam and really set down the laws that you establish, it ain't that the players are running it. The players have to enforce, and I think that's their approach to doing this type of stuff moving forward.
Yeah, the tidbit at the end about, we'll handle it when we have to maybe cut a player. We'll handle it in a respectful way. And everybody probably experiences something different from organizations when they're cut, right? But that led me to the bigger picture on how I feel like their approach is with the team as a whole. Like, they're not going to treat the walk-on or the free agent type of player different from the star player in terms of how they are in that facility. And I feel like overall that's going to make for when somebody leaves, just because their time's up or, they couldn't afford them. It makes for less conversation outside of that building because everybody was kind of treated the same inside the building. And I think that will be big under Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan as a head coach, as, you're getting that respect from the head coach. not everybody is going to be perfectly in line with everything they do, but if you respect your coach like that, you're going to, when you leave, be like, you know what? I might not have agreed with everything we did, but I respect the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
Do we as media need to hear more from Ran in year 2 than we did this past year?
I love hearing from him, but that doesn't mean he has to talk.
Sure.
Nah, I think at this point right here, Brian Callahan takes over and run.
So do you think that Rand's insistence on not speaking in the media as much as maybe his predecessors have is more of a him thing, or more of a that was just him in year 1 figuring out the job?
No, I just think that's going to be the way it's going to be from here on out thing. I'm not sure in many other organizations where the GM actually speaks out, other than combine, coaches meetings, and beginning of the season. 3 times a year usually.
Yeah, and there are times, occasionally where John was made available, if I'm not mistaken, at trade deadline, things of that nature.
Right.
He was.
They make a move like he did not speak as much as John did this past season.
And I think John liked to speak. Honestly, from what I got from my time with John here, like he actually wanted to speak with the media. He would sit down for a good amount of time too, whether that be in Zoom during the pandemic or in person when, we had the opportunities. That's not the vibe I get from Rand. Not like he doesn't want to talk to us, but that's not necessarily his job with everything he does. In certain situations, yes, I think it's good to have the GM there, but overall, I don't think you have to hear from him all the time.
He made us understand a lot that he's going to be out of the way of football.
And I think we just hear there, too, of like when I was a player and when I was in a lot of different locker rooms, it was a distraction when things were negotiated publicly and spoken about publicly. I think that soundbite gives us the answer to our question, that this is Rand's just philosophy, and that's fine. It's his choice. He doesn't owe us anything. But that's the way he is going to run things, because he felt like as a player when – guys way above his head spoke, then it's a distraction in that locker room. And I think that's where Rand's former player perspective is important and valuable, and he can do things his own way, and that's perfectly fine. And I think he has reasoning behind it, where it's not like he's just not speaking because he doesn't want to speak in the media. He's going to sit down and have conversations like this, and there's 45 minutes of really good nuggets in there. So again, check out the OTP wherever you download podcasts. We'll continue reacting to some of the things he said as the show continues this morning, because it's a really good conversation. And credit to you, to Rhett Bryan, to Coach Mack, and Mike Keith for a really good sit-down with Rand. It's good stuff.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Coming up next, though, the NCAA won the first battle, but they're likely not going to win the war. New details and new developments in Tennessee versus the NCAA next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Ingram Agency. Chris Ingram and his great group started this company back in 2010 right here in Middle Tennessee, now serving the entire state. And maybe you're looking for insurance for the first time. Maybe you want to switch up your insurance. Just go with somebody you really can trust. This is the place to go. The Ingram Agency, where protection is our promise. Hey, did you know in terms of home insurance that carriers are raising their rates, I should say, cutting coverage like never before without the home owner even knowing or being fully aware of those cuts? They offer a complimentary review, that is the Ingram Agency, of current home policies to make sure that you are getting the best price and that their policy covers the things they assume are covered. They do everything from, like I said, home insurance to life insurance. Even business owners, you can get insurance for your own business. So check out the Ingram Agency, where protection is our promise. www.ingramagency.com.
7:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Staff's being completed all over the NFL as the Chargers officially have their OC and DC. Greg Roman will call the offense, as last stint was in Baltimore, and Jesse Minter followed Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. He will be the DC. Jesse Palmer of the NFL Network reported yesterday that both guard Joe Thuney and running back Jerick McKinnon have a slim chance to go on Sunday, but the Chiefs feel very comfortable with Nick Allegretti filling in at left guard for the best center guard triangle in football. And the Giants snagging their second former Titans coordinator of the week in Tim Kelly. Kelly will coach the tight ends in New York, working one-on-one with Darren Waller. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this beautiful Wednesday morning edition of RKW. We are brewed by 8th and Rose, talking some Vols with you this morning. We've got Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling, and you on the phone lines at 615-737-1045. Streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV and on the 104.5 The Zone app, even if you're outside of our very large listening area that we have for you. The power of 104.5 The Zone that allows you to listen to us a lot of places around town. Well, even if you're over the pond, maybe.
Yeah.
Another country, different state. We've had callers from everywhere around the United States. We need to put up a big map, guys, in this room of places where people have called in to this radio program.
Like one of those pin maps where you just pin it.
We've had 3 total countries.
Yeah.
Switzerland, England, and the United States.
Yeah.
Represented on this radio program. It's a very good thing. We appreciate you.
London, you mentioned that.
For
also,
helping us become a top 5 morning show in the country.
I'm cool with doing 2
Mid-market.
maps, too. Do the big state of Tennessee. Do one in the state of Tennessee to hit every county or city.
I want
and then do this, the world map.
I want a world map and then a United States map.
I'm with that.
There you go.
I'm into that.
Those
I
are
can
my
live
2
with that.
requests. Get it done.
We can do that. That shouldn't be a problem.
Got plenty of room in
Got
here.
Plenty of room. Yeah, absolutely. We put
Lovely.
that somewhere here, Will.
Outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
615-737-1045. Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins us in 15 minutes. One of our finest. I won't tell him that, but one of our finest.
I was wondering why you were saying that so loud over the radio like that. One of our finest. That's debatable.
He likes coming on the show, we've heard.
Oh, he does.
He does.
Absolutely does.
Finest has never been associated with his name ever.
That's what the streets tell me. Duke Manyweather of OL Masterminds at 8:20 this morning, breaking down some of the top offensive line prospects in the NFL draft pool. Some interior guys that he's working with that are particularly interesting. Cooper Beebe. You've got Cedric Van Pran, who he says is among the highest IQs of any player he's been around, which will be interesting to dive more into. And then a Notre Dame tackle not named Joe Alt, who he is working with as well on the right side of that Notre Dame offensive line, and Blake Fisher, who is another intriguing prospect on day 2, potentially, of the draft. So we'll get all of that breakdown with Duke Manyweather coming up at 8:20 this morning. Rhett Bryan at 9 and 9:20, and Inky Johnson to wrap up the show. But, guys, the NCAA had a win yesterday in a federal court in Tennessee after a federal judge, Judge Clifton L. Corker, which just sounds like a judge name. His parents named him like a judge when he was born. Denied a temporary restraining order yesterday that would allow high school prospects and transfer portal players in 2 states, Tennessee and Virginia, to communicate with NIL collectives during their recruitment. So the NCAA gets a win in the battle, but likely is headed towards a loss in the war, because Pete Nakos of On3 writes, in Corker's decision, the judge states Tennessee and Virginia, quote, failed to demonstrate at this juncture the requisite irreparable harm for the issuance of a TRO. However, he writes, Considering the evidence currently before the court, plaintiffs are likely to succeed on the merits of their claim under the Sherman Act. That is what is notable out of this decision. While the temporary restraining order was not given, the judge writes, yeah, you guys probably have a pretty good case. You're probably going to win.
I think it's okay to give the NCAA that one right now. I do. Just on the basis that, look, keep it what it is right now until we actually go to court for it. It's a super unique, and I'm talking about sticky situation for the NCAA and Tennessee and Virginia also. If you do that, you pretty much strip them. I think a better battle is held if you don't inject the TRO on this case and just let them go to court. What is it, next Tuesday, Will?
Next Tuesday, that is correct.
It's more details, I think, that need to be given out, and a fight should be had fairly on the NCAA side, and, of course, Tennessee and Virginia's too. I absolutely have no problem with this, and, of course, he was somewhat telling by saying, look, you guys can't have it right now, but you'll definitely get it later. It's like one of those, hey, we go to the store, and if you're good, you can get some candy when you get home.
Yeah.
You just can't eat it in the store out of the package.
It's like, okay, this is not a sprint to see who wins this whole thing. Like, it's definitely going to be, and we've heard from so many people, like, it's going to be more of a marathon situation where in the end, I think you're going to see the right result. But right now, it's not going to go everything exactly one way. So I think that was important to have that tidbit in there, though, and for a judge to recognize that.
The fact that he said they're pretty confident.
Right.
That is out of this world to me. So what is the NCAA right now? It's absolutely nothing if they can't somewhat battle this. Like, this is the one dub that they may get in the entirety of this case. Is this one right here.
The NCAA is not somebody, I think, that, or an organization that anybody trusts or anybody has respect for. I think that's certain. And it's becoming more and more apparent that they probably won't be around in the next several years.
It's better off played in next Tuesday's court session.
So the difference between the TRO and the whole suit, the way it pertains to the legal developments in this, is because essentially there is no immediate need for a temporary restraining order on that rule itself, because unlike the transfer TRO that has been granted by a West Virginia judge, basically they are arguing that if a player cannot transfer twice and immediately play, that is doing irreparable harm to their NIL value. So essentially, like, hey, since this ban exists, you can't make money right now, so we need to go ahead and at least temporarily resolve this rule, because you're never going to get that money back, right? Like, that's essentially what that is.
Yeah.
This judge is ruling that that's not necessarily as urgent within this case. Like, there are not high schoolers right now that are never going to be able to make that money back in NIL. Like, there's still time to make this decision before those guys have finished high school, before those players have started their NIL process, and they'll get their money in due time, essentially. So that's the difference between the TRO and the suit in and of itself. If you're looking at this as like, oh, Tennessee's gonna get hit, like, no, it's more the procedure of, can you make that money back after the process plays out? And this Judge Corker, is saying yes.
Seems to be super fair in how he's going about this too.
Corker also writes in his decision that, quote, there is sufficient evidence that the NCAA's NIL recruiting ban likely harms competition, which is interesting. So that was an interesting part of this. Boise State law professor Sam Elrick spoke with On3 to Pete Nakos and said, for the majority of the antitrust cases involving the NCAA, it's been really clear that the NCAA rules restrict competition. What the NCAA goes toward is the pro-competitive justifications. These are all massive words that my small brain cannot comprehend. It's definitely not a good thing for the court to be looking at it like that, because it's a balancing test. Says even though they didn't get the TRO, they're pretty confident. Yeah. Tennessee and Virginia AG. So that's the headline out of this, is that although the NCAA technically got a win within this yesterday, that there's no worry. And I think you can actually be more confident after this decision in favor of the state of Tennessee and the state of Virginia.
That would have just opened up the floodgates for players to just get paid regardless of where they are in those two states, essentially is what it was, right, Will? And it pretty much empowers every other university that decides to do this that you can't stop us. You already lost against Tennessee and Virginia. So if that's Alabama, if that's California, if that's North Dakota, then we're capable of doing this, and you guys can do nothing about it as far as payment to players early. That's why the judge said no, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's essentially saying, like, if just because we're saying no now does not mean you're going to have irreparable harm done to your value.
It just gives you more time to create structure.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And the reason why that's not the case for the second-time transfer thing is because you've got basketball players whose clocks are ticking right now. And if those guys are in their last years of eligibility and they're not made eligible immediately, their window to make money is gone forever. High school players, that window is still wide open because they haven't started their college careers yet, essentially. A lot of legal jargon here that, again, we just talk about sports and drink coffee. So these are all big words that we are trying to wrap our small heads around.
Somebody's asked me numerous times, and Bruce did in the F&M Bank chat, is, how impactful would the transfer portal been at my time at Tennessee? And others have asked that question too. What have it taken, to get you in the portal? And it depends. It was more relationship-based back then. Now you have an actual value attached to yourself.
Right, and there are more ways to market yourself and make money in high school as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
It starts your clock thinking about the business side of what you do much earlier now than it used to. Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins us next. Previewing Tennessee hoops tonight, the lessons learned from a loss last week and a win over the weekend against Kentucky. How far away is Tennessee from being a number one seed? What will it take to get to that line? Mike Wilson answers those questions and more coming up next. Hey, what's going on? It's Will Bowling for my friends at Lee Company. Hey, is your heating system keeping up with the cold weather of winter? If you're out and about in the middle of the day, you might think that it's warm outside. Spring is here. Not the case overnight right now. You still got low temperatures in the 20s and the 30s. Well, I'm here to give you some good news. Available 24/7, 365. The professional Lee Company team is here to help. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this winter. Even better, save $20 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service. You got to contact Lee Company, 615-567-1000, or go online to leecompany.com for an appointment to keep your home's heating in check. Look, if you've been in Middle Tennessee, you know there's another freeze wave coming our way, even though it feels like spring right now. Give them a call, 615-567-1000, and Lee Company. They're going to take care of your heating system to keep up with whatever Mother Nature throws at us here in Middle Tennessee. That's online at leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone, rolling right along on your Wednesday morning. Some major sports media news that came out yesterday afternoon we'll get to coming up in 20 minutes. Something to keep an eye on if you're a sports fan that doesn't like spending $8.99 a month to watch all of your favorite teams. I don't know if this is good news or bad news quite yet. We'll get to that coming up at 7:45. But right now, we go to the phones where our very good friend Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins us right now, talking a little bit of Tennessee hoops. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, I thought the major sports media news was going to be that one Peyton Kennedy followed one Mike Wilson on Twitter, X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, last night. But whatever major news you have probably is cool, too.
Mike, these are called radio teases, and you weren't supposed to give that away until the end of the segment. But essentially what happened was Mike texted me last night once I asked him to come on the show and says, I'm going to give a shout-out. I don't think you said shout-out, though. I think you said I'm going to call out my girlfriend Peyton because we saw Mike, my family saw Mike Grant, our very good friend from VolQuest, Grant Ramey, at the Tennessee Vanderbilt game. And Mike responds and says, because Mike tagged us in a tweet and said, it was great to see all of you. Yet Peyton did not follow him back immediately. And so I had to smooth over this relationship in order to get Mike on the program this morning.
So you got to follow Mike, right?
I did. And
okay.
Now all is well in the world again because all I care about in life is Twitter follows.
That's right. The answer that was given to me is that the terrible service within Memorial Gymnasium was the reasoning, Mike. Do you accept this reasoning as to why Peyton did not yet follow you until last night?
Of course I do. Memorial Gymnasium is a,
you can be honest,
disaster scene.
That's good. We say things like that all the time on this show. It's perfectly fine.
They're trying hard, though. Okay, trying.
I get altitude sickness every time I go to that press box. I swear.
There's a press box there?
Well, it's very small.
Yeah, you're in the
small.
rafters. You're behind the banners.
Hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Good luck.
It's interesting.
That's why I'm a small J journalist out there.
Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel with us. Mike, what impressed you the most about Tennessee's win in Rep Arena over the weekend? And just, it is still incredible to me how we've talked about so many Tennessee wins in Rep Arena. Just the way Rick Barnes is able to have success in that building, unlike essentially every other Tennessee coach that's coached in that building. What'd you like the most about this particular win, though?
I mean, they needed it coming off losing to South Carolina for one. But I think what was really important, I left the South Carolina game kind of puzzled by the first 17 minutes of the second half in which Dalton Connect did not make a field goal, and it seemed like no one else could either. The puzzling part of that to me was Tennessee's got a lot of good players on this roster. They're starting two former All-SEC guards, a likely All-SEC forward, and a former five-star recruit next to Dalton Connect. And those guys, to an extent, seemed like we're deferring to Dalton, which has been a pretty good plan a lot of the time with the way that Dalton Connect has played. But what was really important to me was seeing everyone produce and be confident, aggressive, and attacking, especially Josiah Jordan-James. But Zakai Ziegler is right there in that mix. I think Santiago Vescovi has been really consistent for the past 4 or 5 games. So I think you started to see Tennessee as a team, not Dalton Connect and the Volunteers out there on the court.
And, Mike, you also saw Tobe Awaka essentially go into Hulk mode. And this is something that is interesting to me because if you look at him without maybe knowing him and his personality, you would think this is a fiery guy who probably is, honestly, respectfully, as much as he fouls guys, you would think he's maybe a little erratic and maybe more of a fiery dude. But it was funny, Zakai Ziegler after the game saying, I've been trying to get him that mad for a long time, but I've never been able to do it. What set him off? I know you guys had the opportunity to talk with him this week.
Yeah, he just called it, competitors being competitors, and just in that moment. And it was an interesting little spark. I mean, Josiah Jordan-James said after the game that Tennessee felt like in that moment they weren't going to lose that game when they saw that heat from Tobe on the court. Because he is a little bit more of a mild-mannered dude. I mean, especially away from the court, very much that way. And he got so fired up in that moment. I mean, you saw Zakai clapping, Jordan Gainey clapping, Josiah smiling, Justin Gainey comes over and high-fives him, Rick Barnes comes over and high-fives him. So there was just an edge that came out in that moment that the Vols don't always see out of Tobey.
Mike, you mentioned something that makes me laugh a little bit. When you have veteran guys, and one, I love the fact that Coach Cal just kept saying they got a veteran group. Well, how about you keep your players around your program, okay? But that's neither here nor there, all right? But with that being said, Josiah smiling, being that he's been at Tennessee for a while, you know he's been looking for that guy. I was talking to Will and Kayla earlier. It's almost like the Knicks needed Charles Oakley. And you see an older guy like Josiah smiling because he realized that's the switch that they need to continue on down in that NCAA tournament, the SEC tournament, and deep into those plays where they got to have the aggressor like that. Is that what it was all about, as an old guy watching a young guy grow up even more?
I think that was definitely part of it. I think the reality for Tennessee is they really have two big men in Jonas Adu and Tobey Awaka, and seeing an edge out of those guys matters. Tennessee's not the team it was last year where they had Rose Plavsic in the post causing a scene. That's not who this team is in that manner, but they still need that presence, that physicality. Not the same as that, but you've got to show some toughness there. And Tobey responded in that moment. And also, to be fair, I think I tweeted this, but Tobey Awaka is probably the last person on planet Earth that I'm trying to pick a fight with. That's a big dude. Yeah. I don't know the decision-making that leads to that moment, but would not mess with Tobey Awaka because he looks like a Rock'em Sock'em robot.
Yes, he does. He grew up since he's got to Knoxville, man. On the other side of that, man, picking a fight, it seems like Coach Barnes does not care who or what your namesake is when it comes down to Coach Cal and playing in Rupp Arena, man. What is his mindset in approaching that type of squad with that amount of talent also? And having the ability to beat them, do you contribute it to the transfer portal and the extra COVID years, or you just got to give credit to his coaching style? Which one is it, Mike?
I think there's a few factors. I think it is the coaching style in part of it. I think there's the inherent element that Tennessee's teams that win.
Oh, and there goes Mike.
Must have been messing with
that was
Tobey
literally
Awaka.
a zap. I looked over and the phone line
Coach Cal was apparently
Yeah.
listening and cut the phone line, so we will get Mike on here again in just a moment.
He got me hyped repainting that picture about Josiah smiling at Tobey, because everybody see that young guy grow up in those team moments, and you're just like, get him.
Mike, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I didn't know Mike was back. Man,
Yeah,
get a good phone
Mike,
service.
you are
Mike.
back. Your FBI agent or John Calipari or somebody cut the phone line there.
Yeah, that was weird, but we're back. So what I was just saying, Rick Barnes' coaching style is part of that, I think. I think there's also the element that Tennessee's teams that win there tend to have veterans involved. There are older teams playing against young Kentucky teams. And I do think there's probably a pride in the players of saying, we're not getting punked by these kids. Very, 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 very talented kids. I mean, Rob Dillingham the other night was incredible. But I think there is elements of that, because you can look back and say that Tennessee team that went down there in 2018 and won had a lot of guys who played a lot of basketball. We're still growing, but had a lot of guys in that program. The John Fulkerson team. The Keanu Jaden team might be the exception to that, because those guys combined for 50 in that comeback win. But this team in particular is old. Starting 2 juniors, 3 fifth-year guys, they're old. And I think that really does play into it, of just the experience element of being in that space.
Mike Wilson joins us now of the Knoxville News Sentinel here on RKW. Okay, so Mike, when you saw the performance by Zakai Ziegler at Kentucky, just what were your thoughts? Obviously, his second double-double of the season, but he was just doing everything so right. And how does he find consistency here down the stretch of SEC play?
Yeah, he's got to. And this is the time of year last year where he really rounded into being a true point guard. The game before he tore his ACL last year was South Carolina, and he posted a double-double in that game as well with like 26 and 10. He's capable of doing these things. I thought going into the year, even coming off the injury, he was a guy that had All-American potential, because he is such a good point guard. and he has so many weapons to get the ball to, which is what you see when he racks up 13 assists in a game like that. He is just spraying the ball to a lot of talented guys. He benefits from Josiah Jordan-James being aggressive because that's a guy that he can set up. His assist numbers are going to go up when Tennessee's playing that brand, opposed to it being a lot more just Dalton ISO, which we've definitely seen some of, and for good reason. Dalton was averaging 28.5 points a game in SEC play going into that one. But when you see that team basketball there where there's more balance, you're going to see Zakai Ziegler's numbers go up like that. So it's kind of a team thing, too, as much as the Zakai thing, I think.
The SEC clearly getting better year after year when it comes to overall play in the conference compared to other conferences. And with saying that, there's still some good teams here to play down the stretch for Tennessee and SEC play. What do you need to see out of this team to kind of work their way up in terms of being a highest seed as possible? I think Joe Lunardi right now has them at a 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to the final 4 games of the regular season. Tennessee plays at South Carolina and at Alabama in that, and also then hosts Auburn and Kentucky. So I think those 4 games are going to make or break where Tennessee falls come NCAA tournament time. You go 3-1 in those, and you win a couple in Nashville in the SEC tournament without blunders in SEC play before then, you might work into that 1 seed. Because I know Houston plays its next 8 games as quad 1 games, so maybe there's a blunder there. So Tennessee has an opportunity potentially, but they need to take care of their own business. But when you look at individuals, they need to keep Josiah Jordan-James being aggressive to become that team. He was their second best player for the first month or so of the season, and he hasn't been that since. And he gets criticized for that a lot, but he reminded people of exactly what he's capable of at Kentucky, and they need that. They don't need 18 field goal attempts a game from Josiah, but they do need that aggressive presence to assert himself because he's so capable of doing that.
Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel with us. Mike, this is the time of year where you want players emerging into new roles and improving, especially your freshmen like Cam Carr did over the weekend at Rupp Arena. I thought Rick Barnes had a really interesting answer about him speaking to the media this week about the conversation he had that earned him more minutes and earned him that opportunity at Rupp. How big is his role moving forward, and how significant could his emergence be for Tennessee?
Yeah, those freshman roles are interesting because throughout the year, Rick Barnes' comment has pretty much been, at some point in time, all those guys are going to contribute. We're going to call upon all those guys at some point. And it was Cam Carr's turn at Kentucky. Freddie DeLeon didn't get in there. Cam Carr did. And you referenced that conversation. Rick Barnes basically said that he looked back at North Carolina and Cam went in, took a ridiculous shot, played a minute, yanked him out of the game, didn't go back in. He said he asked him the day of the Kentucky game, what would you do if you got in there? Like, what are you going to do for us? And he said, I'm going to get us an extra possession. And Rick was like, okay. And so went to the coaches and said, if we get a chance, we're going to play him. And he played in the first half in a tight game at Rupp Arena, having played only 1 SEC minute this season so far in a blowout against Florida. And I thought the presence of mind to throw that alley-oop off a loose ball to Josiah was very impressive, just to not panic in a kind of scramble situation there. I don't know what his role is going to look like moving forward. I think Tennessee continues to fluctuate around with Freddie DeLeon, Cameron Carr, some JP Estrella minutes to become more consistent, but they'll turn to those guys in moments of foul trouble, moments of needing something, moments of frustration with what they're getting. I don't know that there's consistent minutes still just because of how deep and veteran Tennessee's team is.
And, Mike, I was going to ask you about Freddie DeLeon as well, considering how highly touted he was out of high school, considering the semester of a redshirt year that he got last season. What is the outcome for him at the end of this year? Is this another scenario where you've got a 5-star that decides, hey, I'm going to enter the portal, go elsewhere? It doesn't seem like he has much of a NBA resume at the moment, even though he is so talented. What do you think the resolution is for a guy who is so good out of high school and just hasn't really had that footing within Tennessee's rotation this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason that role is diminished is Santiago Vescovi, Josiah Jordan-James came back to school. Dalton Connect and Jordan Gainey came to Tennessee via the portal. So in theory, those are 4 additions after Freddie DeLeon. So that affected where his role is. And 3 of those 4 guys are gone after this year. So there's a clear path to playing time for Freddie next season. I think it's just a matter of buckling down on some things, particularly defense. But you've seen such a good attitude out of him and a willingness, I think. It seems to embrace that, even on the hard Rick Barnes practice days. So I think Freddie's got a lot of upside still at Tennessee. I think there's, again, a clear path to minutes for him. It just was a situation this year where so many older guys were coming back into the program that I think that made it really difficult, because you would have seen more Cam Carr too,
Right.
if the roster hadn't had that return, that influx via the portal. So that's just kind of the way it went this year, because all those freshmen are playing pretty minimal roles at the end of the day.
Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel, our guest at By Mike Wilson, where you find him on the artist formerly known as Twitter. One of our finest guests
Yes.
here on this program. Mike, thank you.
You guys know how to butter me up, so.
Sure do.
I butter you up despite the fact that you come in taking shots at my girlfriend within the first 30 seconds of this interview, but I allowed it.
You know, sometimes you just got to call people out for these antics.
You really do. You really do. Mike, keeping everyone accountable, both at home and abroad. Mike, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, see you guys.
All right.
There he is, Mike Wilson with us this morning. Interesting stuff on the freshman there, guys, because I think when you think of a fringe five-star player like Freddie DeLeon not getting minutes, you think of that guy as a prime transfer portal candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you do, and to understand, this is also the thing too. When you're being recruited, understanding what type of coach you're going to does matter. All the glitz and glamour and love that they give, you still got to know, watching the tape and seeing how coaches are. Look, they don't really play freshmen unless you can do something for them, and that's what it looked like. Coach Barnes has shown everybody that's coming in, no matter if you're a 4 or 5-star guy, got a lot of potential. Unless you're a transfer like Dalton Connect and you know what your role is going to be. It's simply that. But even he got challenged this year to be better defensively. So nobody's escaping his arm length of contributing on the defensive end.
And that's the thing with all players now with the transfer portal. Like, you better have your game like going all the time, and you don't have to be perfect in every game. We'll see what happens, but it can take one situation like that where you're up at Kentucky and you see Cam getting the start, and you're like, okay, maybe this isn't the spot for me. Or, you deal with it and you say, I'm going to prove this.
Yeah.
Really puts players at a testing level. So
Coming up next, major sports media news yesterday on something that is likely coming to your television that will remind us of something that came to us a long time ago. It'll make sense after this.
hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Wang Vision Institute. There we go. And if you're wondering what they're all about, what an incredible place in terms of your eye care health. Went in there a couple months ago, went through the whole thing in terms of checking out my eyes, making sure I knew what I was in the future in terms of what it holds for me, and making sure that my eye health was on point. They do it all there very well, from the doctors, everyone from the front desk treating you like family. And now they're actually offering more than just eye care. They're offering skincare as well, intense pulse light treatments. If you're wondering what that is, photofacial treatment, rejuvenated the skin. Maybe you've had some sun damage. You're seeing those dark spots appear now that you're getting older. These treatments are awesome. They're 20 to 30 minutes, super easy. You get out, and after a week or so, your skin tone and texture is going to change. Those IPL treatments can create long-lasting results and really leave your skin in a good situation after maybe you've been dealing with hyperpigmentation or uneven skin tone. I also mentioned that they take care of your eyes. They offer free online vision seminars. Those take place every Tuesday. That's at 6:45 p.m. So if you're interested in that, or you're just interested in scheduling your IPL treatment, you can RSVP and schedule that treatment today. You just visit wangvisioninstitute.com. That's wangvisioninstitute.com.
Rolling right along to finish off the first half of your Wednesday morning RKW. We are brewed up by 8th and Rose. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Coming up in 15 minutes, Ran Carthon on the OTP had some interesting conversation with Ramon Foster, Rhett Bryan, Mike Keith, Coach Dave McGinnis on the official Titans podcast. He answered why they were not in Mobile for the Senior Bowl and also gave an interesting answer on why so many young coaches have already been hired to this staff. We'll get to that coming up in 15 minutes. Duke Manyweather of OL Masterminds breaks down some of the best offensive linemen in the 2024 draft class coming up in 30 minutes as well. But guys, yesterday there is some news that is not yet a massive shift in sports media, but maybe gets the ball rolling a little bit down the hill. A day before Disney and Fox were set to report earnings, the companies threw a curveball towards investors. As Front Office Sports writes, yesterday, ESPN, owned by Disney, along with Warner Brothers Discovery and Fox Corp, are creating a shared streaming platform for sports assets that will be available later this year, they say in a release. This is going to be a one-stop shop for sports streaming, and people who have Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max will also have access to this. First reported by the Wall Street Journal, and it comes at a time where the NBA is currently seeking its next media rights deal, which both ESPN and Turner Sports, the latter of which is owned by Warner Brothers, are negotiating to be a part of. So essentially, this is like when ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu all became under the same umbrella, except now you're adding TNT and TBS into that. What does this sound like? It sounds like cable is what this sounds like.
It's bothersome. It is. Like I have I'm probably burying the lead on my "You're Not That Guy" too. I had this teed up,
which we will do tomorrow morning. Yes. I apologize for the.
All good, all good. It's just when you got one, we essentially ended up getting. I had ESPN because of sports and stuff like that at first, and then ESPN teamed up with Hulu. I'm like, cool. Then they packaged it in with Disney. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me consolidate all of this and put it into one app, and then of course making sure that the passwords are correct on each account, and having to say, well, I don't have to pay for this one anymore. Keish asked me, Mom, what's the password for it? Was the same one as the Disney one, isn't it? No, it's not, because I used a different email to set up for Hulu at the time. Like, this is it's frustrating at this point with these streaming platforms.
And you know it's tough for Ramon too, because how many TVs you got in your house, Ramon?
I got 15.
He's got so many TVs you got to sign
one for every Christmas tree.
Every single one of them.
It's to the point where I'm like, do I need a smart TV? No, let me go get an Apple box. Also, on top of that, it's like TV outside, TV in the guest room. Oh my God, help me, Like, I feel buried. I don't
have that many TVs. I will say, however, it is really hard nowadays to keep track of what cards are saved under certain accounts, because if anything happens to your card, like something happened to me about a month ago where I had to get a brand new card, I forgot, oh, dang, I've got Hulu under this, and then it's coming up and saying, your account is no longer in access because we can't get a payment. I'm like, oh, shoot. So there's so many different things, and you forget about how they're all separate for the most part. And my understanding, too, with this, and this is annoying in some ways, but I'm hoping in the long run this could be helpful. This will all be under, like, kind of one umbrella, right?
Yeah.
So you can log into one thing to watch NBA, to watch any sports on ESPN, to watch, let's say, NHL stuff that comes up on Turner TBS as well. That's the only thing I see in positive is the future long-term benefits of this situation. But it's annoying as heck to know that there's one more thing out there that we're going to have to consolidate and join in and pay some sort of fee. And again, that has not been announced yet, what this fee will be for this whole collaboration of sports entities.
I don't know if you'll have to, but it is going to be interesting. Like, the middle ground to get to where this is heading is going to be the worst part, because I do think we will get to a point where if you want a channel, you pay for it directly. And I'm interested to see how cable companies fight back with that, because they are being made useless within this process. I think where this could go is when 75% of NFL games become behind a paywall. And in order to watch your favorite team, even within your market, you've got to pay for it the way we all had to pay for Peacock to watch a playoff game. Like, again, I'm going to bring the international flavor and the European flavor to this. In Europe, you have to pay to watch most games behind a paywall. Like, you have to pay for a subscription to watch regular Premier League games in England.
Local.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything's local.
I mean, I know, but
right. Like other than like 2 games that are on TV every weekend, that are on national TV in England, like you have to pay for a separate subscription to watch every game. And that's life and death. Like they have us. Like we're going to watch it. We're going to pay for it. So the middle ground where we're stuck between cable companies and then the other streaming services, that's the worst part. Because eventually we're just going to get to the point where like, all right, you like these certain sports, you pay for ESPN direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Because you want to watch college football. Then you go pay for CBS because you want to watch the Titans. And then you go pay for Fox because you want to watch this or that. And then Amazon and all of these things. It's interesting. It's not good for the consumer.
And then they hike the price up on you. I'm going back to the antenna. I'm going back to the
Didn't someone in the chat say that? Antenna and Netflix. Oh, John Michael said that in F and Big Chat. Over-the-air antennas and Netflix.
Last year in Pittsburgh, we didn't have cable. We actually just had internet and the antenna. I've lived this life before.
Sure.
Why don't you just get the bundle, get the house phone, and then I can watch it. You can call me, and I'll tell you what's going on.
You get a cellular phone.
Does anyone have a house phone anymore in this world? I just want to know.
My grandparents do.
Do they? I think my mom does.
Older people, and this is so off the books, older people get insurance discounts if you have a home cell phone or a home phone.
That makes sense. I can understand that.
615-737-1045. More of your phone calls, plus Ran Carthon on why young coaches are important to the Titans' new staff. From Ramon Foster, Mike Keith, Rhett Bryan, and Coach Mac's conversation with Ran on the OTP. Interesting stuff from your GM coming up next.
All right, fellas, we're less than a week away, or about a week away, 7 days away. Okay, Valentine's is coming. So are you looking for the most thoughtful, most romantic gift, the one you love for this Valentine's Day? I got 2 words for you if you are looking for that gift. Genesis Diamonds. Maybe it's a simple pendant or an exquisite one-of-a-kind designer ring. Genesis can help you pick out the most memorable and special piece of jewelry for the occasion. And to make it even sweeter, now to Valentine's, whether you spend $199 or to you big ballers out there, $199,000, Genesis will give you some chocolates, fresh flowers, and a dinner out at no charge. This is a great deal, okay? And if it's a one-stop shop for the ultimate Valentine's Day experience. When you buy any piece of beautiful jewelry, they will give you some beautiful flowers from Jenny's Florist, some yummy chocolates, and a gift card for dinner at STK Steakhouse. So stop wasting your time. Get to Genesis Diamonds. They've got a spectacular collection of memorable romantic gifts from $199 to $199,000. And right now, they're going to throw in some chocolates, flowers, and dinner out at no extra charge. Happy Valentine's Day from Genesis Diamonds. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
8 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Staff's being completed all over the NFL. The Chargers are no different as they officially have their OC and DC. Greg Roman will call the offense after leaving his last stint in Baltimore, and Jesse Minter will call the defense, who followed Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. Jesse Palmer of the NFL Network reported yesterday that both guard Joe Thuney and running back Jerick McKinnon would have a slim chance to go in the Super Bowl, but Chiefs feel very comfortable with Nick Allegretti, who is filling in at left guard for what is said to be the best center guard triangle in football. And the Giants snagging their second former Titans coordinator of the week in Tim Kelly. Kelly will coach the tight ends in New York, working one-on-one with Darren Waller. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 3 of RKW starts right now. We are brewed by 8th and Roast with locations on 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, and their brand new spot at the Broadview at Vanderbilt. 8th and Roast Coffee cultivates community by the cup. And you can find your favorite retail bag in every local Kroger and Whole Foods as well. We've got a fresh pot of 8th and Roast going, talking Titans with you in the Evan and Bank chat on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Please.
You can watch the show there every single morning and watch it any time of day, midday, at night, overnight. Just keep on rolling through all the episodes. They are there immediately when the show ends for your viewing pleasure.
Yay.
That's Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer. I'm Will Bowling. Coming up in 15 minutes, Duke Manyweather of OL Masterminds will sit down with us. We'll talk about how deep this draft class is at offensive line and specifically scout one of the 2 tackles that is consistently linked to the Tennessee Titans and Penn State tackle Olu Fashanu, who he is working with in the draft process.
He is. And Duke, he trains a lot of guys. Trey Smith is another one of his guys. If you want to just look at the body of work, if I'm not mistaken, I think Creed Humphrey goes down with them too. If you're an O-lineman, for the most part, and there's a couple of guys he acknowledged just, didn't come down, and that's perfectly okay. But more than likely, there's now a safe haven for offensive line to go to for pre-draft and combine training. And it's position-specific too.
Is this remote more than ever, just in terms of really the attention that is going to offensive linemen? It's always a very important position.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much new stuff out there for us to really dive into, and people breaking it down much more, including on this show where I've learned a lot specifically about the position. Is it more than you've seen even in your times playing of understanding how important this position is and how to break it down?
It is, and it's just an open market on it too, because everybody knows what 7-on-7 is. Everybody knows what the quarterback academy, and everybody knows, what you're getting from the DBs and the D line and stuff like that. But nobody knows how to really evaluate offensive linemen. And it's like I said, it's an open market for the ones that understand it, and the ones who are teaching it are also the ones who actually played it, know what they're talking about. So it's cool that a guy like Duke, and I'm sure there's others out there also that do breakdowns and try to, Baldinger's another one too,
yeah.
that try to give somewhat of a breakdown of what the playing on the offensive line and in the trenches entails. So I love the fact that that's a part of today's game too. It's nobody understands it.
Right.
Alvin in Nashville, first up in hour 3 on the phone, 615-737-1045. Hey, Alvin.
Hey, good morning. How y'all doing?
Morning.
Good.
Hey, I actually had 3 questions. I'm gonna go right into. First of all, do we have a quarterback coach yet?
No.
We do not.
Okay.
And Charles London was let go.
Okay. My second question was with these 2 tackles for show, and I was wondering are they just like a lock in? Hey, remember when Joe Thomas came out? Hey, this guy's gonna be a 10-year tackle. we know these two players are like, you cannot pass on them. Are they them type of players? And the reason why I ask is because, you know, every year with the draft, it's always a surprise, like somebody might fall like right there and you'd be like, well, hey, we need more depth, you know, we can trade out, or, you know, hey, this is a player that we cannot miss. Like, you know, I always never say never. You know, I know Marvin Harrison Jr. will not be there, but you can never say never. So what would you do if you was a GM? And I'm going to hang up on this.
Thank you, Alvin.
Great question right there. Are they for sure hits? Yes, they are. Will they have learning curves? Absolutely. You look at Fashanu and, here's the thing. They are position-specific left tackles. They have played a lot at big-time university against really good players, and their stat lines have lined up with both of them, giving up minimal sacks, being good in the run game, being good athletes in space. If you were to say that you're okay with taking Joe Alt or Fashanu, nobody would bat an eye. Both are projected to be top 10 guys, but they also play like that too. Joe Alt is 6'7.5", 6'8", with the ability to set like he was a Joe Thomas. I'm not calling him Joe. You got to grow into that role. I'm not crowning anybody, but as far as smarts, as far as play, as far as athletic ability, holding up against the bull rush, knowing angles, both of these guys, they check every single box if you're looking for that guy. And again, I'll say this, Alvin. They have to grow up, adjust to the NFL game, and grow more mentally than physically when it comes down to them being a 10-year starter at left tackle.
And doesn't that make it harder, though, for the Titans to pass over a guy like that if they're there?
If there's a run on quarterbacks and you project the wide receiver to be better, you do it. Again, talking to Chad Brinker, who's the president of football operation for the Titans, they do have a metric. And if you go listen to that conversation, he somewhat gives up some of that information that if you can't pass up on this guy, then you take him. I don't know who's going to be the drop. The big right. Conversation right now is, will there be a run on quarterbacks?
Who would you take a wide receiver over in terms of like an Alt or a Fashanu?
I'm not even sure, because I'm not sure to do a deep dive on Malik Neighbors. To me, I'm not sure. The guy from Washington either.
Roma Dunze.
I honestly don't know.
It's hard to answer any of these questions when the process is about 20%.
And free agency.
Hasn't happened, and the combine is the most important piece of this that hasn't happened yet.
Right. Because if you find a wide receiver in free agency, you might feel even more comfortable just going with that tackle.
Yeah. It is a hard one to answer right now. Because it's a position of need versus a want.
Right.
Well, you did talk with Ran Carthon on the OTP, a conversation that is out, official Titans podcast, where you subscribe to that wherever you download podcasts. A 45-minute discussion with Titans general manager Ran Carthon in an exclusive interview. Some great nuggets in there. Talk about why Ran and Brian Callahan were not at the Senior Bowl. There's really interesting stuff about the profile tape that they're looking at and the DNA of what a Tennessee Titan is and how they are going about creating that. Ran also had this to say about hiring young coaches and the fact that Brian Callahan has a lot of younger eyes in his coaching staff.
Ran, you mentioned a second ago about first-time head coach Brian Callahan, and it's a bunch of firsts that's happening around this building in the city and in the NFL too. How's it been watching it evolve from where guys can get their first break into their 30s or later to where now you mentioned a head coach at 36, 39, 40, to where the communication on their side is big for the players, but also you back that up, the player has also changed too. The way you guys and I came up was it was a lot rougher, I would think. Technology somewhat exposed guys to a lot of stuff and knowledge too, so you got to communicate different. How does that affect the way a first-time head coach and Brian Callahan and their connection to this younger generation will benefit this team?
Well, I think for him, if you look at it, he's been the OC. For a head coach that called the plays, right? So he had to take more of a holistic approach and being able to not only manage the staff, for Zach, but he had to touch every player, right? And in doing so, he's spending more time with the younger generation of players, which I think gives him a unique perspective on how to deal with, handle, and motivate, what we call the new age player. I feel like an old head now saying that. But, again, it offers a unique perspective. I think our staff, the division of labors, we got experience, we got some youth, we got guys from different backgrounds, guys who may have been primarily in college, who've only been in the NFL a couple years. And, again, it brings a unique perspective to the staff. And one thing that I did back during the fall was, spent time talking to a bunch of friends of mine that are college coaches, right, to have a better understanding of when you're bringing these young guys in, like what's the best way to connect, what's the best way to reach them, how can we do that to help, arm the coaching staff with as much information as possible, on these guys. And I think, the same should be said for the coaches, and their ability to connect. Because, again, this is and will always be a people business, right? And you have to have the people right, and you have to have the right people in the building, and then the rest will fall into place.
That's interesting to me, using advice from college coaches on how to build out a staff and really, in some ways, create a plan for the offseason.
Yeah. And you have to. Like I said, it's always a people's business. And I almost expected him to say, well, it's player-based. And that's what you're trying to get at. How can we reach these players to get them? That was one of the first things one of my good friends, Gerard Mayo, said about taking over in New England. Was we got to know how to talk and communicate to these guys because it has changed. You can't just, hey, go hit that sled for 30 minutes anymore. You can get them to do that by telling them a different pathway. Hey, man, it'd be better if, you're not kissing any butt by telling guys or slowing it down or teaching them a newer way. Again, the production on the field would matter, but you also have to have people that understand how to communicate with them and grow as a coach too, because to stick into your old ways as far as being a hard-nosed coach. Like, every coach has hard ways about him. That's one thing I heard about Brian Callahan. Like, he's an understanding guy, but he's a no-nonsense dude, too. That has been consistent from the people that I've talked to is you don't play around with Brian Callahan. So understanding how to be hard, but also understanding how to communicate and develop and get guys to work and want to work for you is one of the mainstays I think that this group is bringing into this Tennessee Titans headquarters.
615-737-1045. We'll get your phone calls later on in hour 3. But when we come back, a great breakdown on 2024 NFL draft class offensive linemen from one of the leading coaches at that position. Duke Manyweather of OL Masterminds joins us coming up next.
Well, don't go another year without getting a solution for that awful joint pain. Call QC Kinetics right now and make 2024 the year you are back to living your normal life again. Everybody wants that. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson, and QC Kinetics can give you your life back. They are the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, all natural treatments too. They can repair and restore that damaged tissue, giving you pain-free movement once again. And QC Kinetics has tens of thousands of satisfied patients all over the country, people who may be dealing with that knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, and they were able to get long-lasting relief with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. So if you have pain from an old injury, let's say, or pain associated with arthritis, you need to check this out. The future of medicine is here. Regenerative treatments from QC Kinetics. So make the call now. Get the most out of 2024. Call QC Kinetics at 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling. Great draft if you're a Titans fan to break down the big guys. And we go straight to the source. Duke Manyweather of OL Masterminds joins us this morning here on the show. A scout, a coach, and a great source to tell us about some of these prospects the Titans may be interested in. What's up, Duke? How are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're great, and we are the show, Duke, I feel like that is carrying the torch in this city and abroad of giving big guys love. And whether Ramon Foster, whether he's here or not, he has instilled a love for offensive linemen in us and an appreciation in this city for offensive linemen. So we're glad to talk with you and glad to be scouting some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Ramon have talked about this a lot over the years, but my whole goal and objective for what I do at OL Masterminds, of course, is a holistic approach to training and developing offensive linemen, mind, body, and craft, but it's also to highlight and spotlight the most thankless position in football, which is the offensive line, the team within the team, the most unnatural position there is in football, where everything is a learned skill. So I truly believe that offensive linemen are the most skillful guys on the field, and I try to do my best to articulate that, to encapsulate that in everything that we do, whether it's for the Big Boys Club or, just my interactions daily.
If you could see the smile on Ramon Foster's face as you preach right there about that. He is all in.
Hey, whatever you need to do, go with it, okay, man? This is your floor. We are students now. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Well, we'll get into some of these prospects specifically. I know you're working with and scout some of these guys, but Duke, just starting with this draft class as a whole, what impresses you about the profile of players you've been able to work with as a whole getting ready for the draft this year? Yeah,
you know what? Let's just talk about the entire draft class, and not in particular the guys that I'm working with, but just the 1,000-foot view is I really like this tackle class. I think this tackle class is solid. I think there's a couple of special guys at the top, and I think there's some guys that all the way will be day one starters and potentially, really high and elite level starters as the thing goes on. I think the center class at the top too is very good. I think the guard class is solid. So all in all, a very good year for offensive line. If you need an offensive line to draft and build your team through the draft. And as we know, development in the NFL is no guarantee when it comes to offensive. One of the worst things that you can have is potential that goes unrealized. But I think there's some players that possess enough physical tools and enough of the critical factors needed day one to be able to step in and make that transition. I think the way the game is and the way the NFL is, this like in this current state, you got to be able to have those critical factors and those technique fundamentals that translate day one, because you never know what you're going to get in terms of the approach to coaching and development with whatever team drafts you. Now in Tennessee, they don't have to worry about that. With Bill Callahan coming home, the best in the business.
Oh, Duke, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, you were breaking up just a little bit there. I had to make sure we had you there. You bring up Bill Callahan. You pretty much sent me in a different direction. I wanted to roll with you because here's the thing. The Titans can pick a wide receiver at 7, which they need there, or they can pick an offensive tackle there also. But you mentioned the idea that, look, a lot of these guys can be day one starters and get better with growth. You said the top 10 dudes are probably ready to roll. You have one of those guys down there too, but the mentioning of Bill Callahan, I think, shifts my conversation to you to where you say to yourself, if you do go wide receiver at that 7th pick for the Titans, you will still have the ability to get a quality guy and get him taught up under Bill Callahan. Do you feel that way about where they could pick at?
Yes, I do. I really do. So if this was any other situation, I would say you got to go get your favorite flavor of ice cream early in the draft. Whether that's Joe Alt, whether that's Olu Fasanu, who I'm working with. You got to go. But with having Bill Callahan there, that gives you a little flexibility to say, okay, what are we rating higher in terms of need and positional value and best player available? That all factors into, the conversation and decision that's going to be made moving forward. But you feel good about taking or moving back in the draft or whatever you need to do. You feel good about getting the offensive lineman that Bill Callahan can develop, and sometimes it can be in the second or third round. You look at second, third, fourth, fifth round guys, there's always a ton of stars that come from those mid rounds, and even late rounds. And then you factor in Bill Callahan and his approach to development and his track record of development. You feel really good about, having some flexibility there now to maybe go get your receiver in the top 7. Unless you just value, like, hey, we say that these 2 guys are our guys. We're going to build with this. And I think it's a critical decision to be made because you've got Peter Skoronski now at left guard, and you could do something really special with solidifying that left side really early on in the draft. So I think there's going to be a lot of conversations to have. I think Bill Callahan is a tremendous asset to the Tennessee Titans organization. So it'll be interesting to see how they move.
You have one of the top guys down there, Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. If you could, give us a quick breakdown on him and what you guys are working on in this pre-draft, and what did he actually bring to you that you just said, oh, this is definitely a top 10 guy as he's projected?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, people have been asking who he reminds me of, and Tyron Smith is who he reminds me of. Just you look at, how good he is in pass protection, and I think it gets understated, the growth that he made this year in the run game. You look at some of the Michigan State film and the Michigan tape, I mean, he's rolling dudes and driving guys off the ball. So that was a really big area of improvement from 2022 to 2023 that I think he made the leap. He's young. He's strong. He's powerful. He's explosive. Very high football IQ and intelligent. Very nimble and mobile. And so, like, when you look at a guy like Olu, I think his best football is still ahead of him. When you look at when people were talking about he was going to be OT1 coming out in 2022, he only had 8 starts under his belt. So this year with another 13 or 12 starts, he's right around that 25, 26 mark of starts. So he's got a lot of football left to continue to develop. And you factor in maybe a Bill Callahan in that. Bill Callahan was a tremendous role player in the development of Tyron Smith earlier in his career. So I see those parallels, those similarities very, very, very vividly. And I think that, I think that Olu would look really good in Titan Blue.
Took Manyweather Oil Masterminds with us, a coach and a developer of offensive linemen. We're going to try, Robert's talking with him right now. Got a little bit of trouble with his connection here. We're going to try to reset with him real quick and see if we can remedy that so you can hear a little more clearly the analysis he is bringing us. But again, word for word, what he says there about Olu Fashanu, the Penn State tackle, reminds him of Tyron Smith, says gets understated the growth he made this year in the run game.
Yeah, that's big time right there, man. And just speaking of how nimble he is, too.
Yeah.
I think you look at the diversity that Brian Callahan will have in this offense. I think that's going to be the biggest thing as far as finding an athlete at left tackle. Super unique situation that the Titans are in. Hearing them speak so highly about Olu is very exciting.
All right, Bird tells me we've got Duke here. Duke, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect. Yeah, loud and clear.
Also, the other side of this, too, is free agency has to hit at some point. Duke, I have to ask you, the Titans have had some issues at left tackle for the last couple of years. For veteran guys that you may see that you may want to reach out to, is there much to be corrected for guys that have been 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the league that you can make them a better pro at technique or teaching?
Yes, absolutely. I think the really good players, the really good veterans are continuing to get better all throughout their career, So I don't think that who a guy is in year 2, 3, or 4, who he's going to be in year 5, 6, and 7. There should be continuing trajectory of development. If there's not, then, that's the problem. Those are guys that typically don't last long. But when you look at the top of the tackle, the top of the tackle totem pole, so to speak, when you look at your Trent Williams, when you look at your Teron Armstead, when you even look at your Lane Johnsons over on the right side, those guys have continued to get better as their career has gone on. So development is never linear, and it never is just like you are what you are in that regard for those that are good. So I think there's an opportunity to still get a veteran potentially, and then get him coached up under Coach Callahan and really push the development needle, so to speak. So it's not a foreign concept or thought that you can get a guy who's been in the league 3-4 years, 5 years, and get him better, especially if you identify that he's got the traits and the critical factors and that capacity for development. That's another thing too, is like when you're evaluating these guys, whether you're or veteran type guys, like, all right, what is it capacity? Like, who has he learned under? Has he continued to get better or add something to his game every single year? Because those are key indicators that maybe he still has some growing and some development that capable of achieving.
Duke Manyweather joining us now from OL Masterminds, and we want to reiterate. Make it clear that you are working with so many of these guys in the upcoming draft, so many here in terms of the depth of this class. And we've mentioned Fashanu. Let's talk about Patrick Paul, because he was also down there at the Senior Bowl. What an intriguing guy, just his background. I know showing off his length down there, and also his martial arts background, and how that kind of can all come into fold in terms of his draft rising.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pat is a unique individual with being, over 6', 330 pounds. He moves really well. Our area of focus has been cleaning up his hands, just the hand placement. Ramon can attest to this. One of the biggest jumps that guys need to make in their skill set development is understanding how to use their hands and subscribing to one thought process and using it. Some coaches in college and even in the pros still teach, a tight hand, two-hand strike. Well, there's a time and place for that. You got to be able to use hands independently. You got to be able to use a two-hand strike. Sometimes it's no strike. Sometimes it's aggressively putting your hands on another man and being able to strain, the strain that is required to be able to stop a guy. So being able to do a lot of different things with your hands is what a pro is being about. And just trying to get Pat to understand that and sync up his hands. I truly believe that efficient feet allow effective hands. So getting that thought process and then doing that, those skills and those techniques are really what we're focused on down here. And, I saw him in Mobile start to implement some of the things we worked on. But we got a long ways to go. But, again, he's a guy that isn't a finished product and just has tremendous upside and really strong work ethic and capability. But he has to continue to clean up his hands and not expose his chest.
Right.
Duke, how important is it we're talking about the Titans specifically, kind of getting some homegrown guys there on the line, because they've just gone the past couple of years with, ever-changing positions and guys leaving and coming. And I think the biggest thing is, they want a couple guys on there at least that you can say, we drafted them, they've been here from the beginning. How big is that in terms of having that consistency on a line for years?
It's huge. It's huge. You've got to build, if you want that O-line to be a consistent asset to your team, I think you built through the draft and then maybe one free agent piece when you say, okay, we weren't able to grow in the draft in this area, but we can plug this guy in. And I think really what it boils down to is, again, having a guy like Bill Callahan and being on the same page in the front office and saying, all right, here's our guy. Or here are our type of guys. Here are the traits and the critical factors that we need. We're going to build this offensive line roster out with guys that fit this criteria. And then we're going to build out the depth of this offensive line room with guys that may not fit all the criteria that we want for our starters, but have similar traits and characteristics of each. And then you could plug that into what's out there for free agency. I think that's what Bill Callahan has done at every stop of the way, which is why he's been so successful and his units have been so successful. You take a look at what he did this year in Cleveland. Both his tackles were out. I think they played third and fourth string tackles, and they were competing in the playoffs. So that's a testament to again, like the way they're building that room, and then the type of coaching and development that they're getting.
Duke Manyweather, our guest, OL Masterminds, breaking down the big guys in the 2024 NFL draft class. Duke, I know you tweeted about Georgia center Cedric Van Pran being among the highest IQs of any player you've been around. As the Titans look for a new interior piece for their line as well, what do you like the most about him? What specifically makes him so special?
He's played a lot of football at Georgia, and he is a guy that knows what everybody on the offense is doing, from receivers to quarterbacks to left tackle to right tackle. He's a guy that can identify pressures, identify safety rotations, and then when the ball is snapped, he's crafty, he moves really well. He reminds me of a lot of Eric McCoy from the New Orleans Saints. And that's my comparison to him, watching tape on him, having worked with McCoy pre-draft in his entire career. I see a lot of similarities. And the thing that is really impressive about Cedric is every single day he wants to have a check-in on, all right, here's something I identified that I can get better at. How do you view this? And he's taking notes on it. I started a board series called the Masters Class that is on the OL Masterminds app, and I put Cooper Beebe up kind of talking about his pin and pull. But, Cedric Van Pran is going to be up there next. So you guys can really take a deep dive into the mind of what a high IQ center is looking at and moving through different progressions. And I think it's going to be eye-opening to see how cerebral he is, but then just the level of nuance and detail that offensive line really have.
Really, really good stuff from Duke Manyweather this morning. Check out the OL Masterminds app as well. You got custom workouts, you got coaching, training. This thing is legit, and Duke is the leader when it comes to scouting and breaking down and coaching these big guys. Really good stuff, Duke. Appreciate you making time for us.
Definitely.
No problem. Anytime. I love to come back. And sorry about the phone issues earlier.
No, you're good.
All good, Duke. Thank you.
All good. Thank you so
Definitely.
much. There's Duke Manyweather with us this morning here on the show, breaking down some of those big guys. And I think we will certainly save that interview. And on the chance the Titans draft any of those guys, we'll think back to February 7th when we got the first breakdown on them.
Yeah.
Some stuff to react to within that. We can get to your phone calls. Got a little bit of time to do that before Rhett Bryan joins us at 9 o'clock. 615-737-1045. A pretty good comp on a guy who could be a Titan in the top 10 at number 7 in the first round. We'll get into that next.
It's Ramon Foss for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, it's Valentine's season and love is in the air. Now is the time to find your perfect match this month with Hiller. Like getting a free UV light when you purchase a select new HVAC system, or a free whole home surge protection when you buy a new whole home generator. And those are clutch with the weather that we have here. I think it's supposed to get back cooler sometime soon. If there's snow, you don't know what that is, but your house will be lit up with Hiller. Or you can get 50% off of Discover when you buy a new tankless water heater. You'll be more in love with your home when you get stuff done with Hiller and from Hiller also. So find your perfect match like I do at happyhiller.com.
RKW is brewed up by 8th Roast on 104.5 The Zone. And coming up in 15 minutes, Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio will join the proceedings. If you miss any of these conversations, the O-line breakdown with Duke Manyweather, you can find that wherever you download podcasts, Apple, Spotify, 1045thezone.com, everywhere else podcasts are made. And go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you are there. Helps us and helps you.
Yes, it does.
Because then you don't miss an interview. Chris in Nashville next up on the phone, 615-737-1045. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Hey, just a quick question. I'll hang up. You guys, as former athletes, can relate to this. I just want to know, if I was on a team where we had a lot of talent, but we finished 2-8. Different coach, we would definitely finish 8-2. And I just wonder, from a roster standpoint for the Titans, and I know time will tell, do you guys think that our roster is really not as bad on paper as it's graded out the past couple of years? Or do we have the result of a coach kind of being my way or the highway, and just kind of sticking to the same thing and not being innovative? And I know time will tell, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about that.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Great question.
I'd say it depends on the position, right?
It does. It does depend upon the position, too. You had a rookie quarterback, too, so let's also remember that. And also transition from Ryan Tannehill last year, too. It's almost like we forget that side of it, where his play dictated that. But I'll say this. The fact that you had one lost games lets you know where you are. That many one-loss games, I think 6 or 7, somewhat lets you know where you are as far as competition and as far as talent goes. Because sometimes talent takes you over the top in those big-time moments where plays are being made. Let's go to the Cleveland game. You got, Myles Garrett getting 3 sacks. You don't have a Myles Garrett type, although you had 2 guys with double-digit sacks throughout the course of the year. I do think some coaches have the ability to paint pictures for you, to motivate you, to set a culture to where you outplayed the talent, meaning you may be a lesser roster, but you still find ways to outcoach certain people. And I think when you look at the way the last couple of years have gone, you somewhat do got to look at the other sideline and say, I think they were somewhat outcoached, or the culture was a little bit better. And certain, I'm not saying the Titans' culture was bad. They never had a culture problem inside the locker room. But the identity of winning, I think, sometimes took a backseat to what other teams were capable of doing when they had lesser roster, because you had teams come in here that ended up beating you that should not have.
Right.
And that wasn't talent-based. That was probably somewhat being outcoached or, bad discipline on a player or two throughout the course of the game.
You've mentioned it before. You don't always want to be the underdog. At some point, you want to graduate from being the underdog in situations. And I felt like in the past few years, especially, it's been that, but they're the underdogs, like there's always a chance. And that's great sometimes. But at some point, you need to graduate from that to be able to be a team that's going to go on and win Super Bowls and do it at a consistent rate in terms of finding success. And part of that does come with the personnel and just drafting the right guys that hit. And that piled up. I think there were a lot of misses that most of those guys you don't see here anymore. That piled up, and then you were in a position where you had to be the underdog because there just wasn't much to work with. And I think it's going to be so refreshing now to see what they do in this reset, if they can find that hitting in drafts, hitting in free agency, and not always playing that underdog role.
You guys want to know something that's going on today?
Listen, what is
It's National Signing Day.
Oh, how many of those do we have? 8?
Of what sport?
This is the football.
Is it
All
really?
of them.
I mean, what?
Today,
What?
February 7th. Today is National Signing Day.
What about
The
the
fact
one
that we
just-
have not. Well, that was also National Signing Day.
2 of them.
Yeah, of course. There's just been 2 of them.
Which one is
No,
this?
but still, who's actually signing today?
Athletes in all sports, I believe.
Okay, respect. I didn't realize today was the day.
I say
It
that
used to be such a
to
big
make
day.
the point
So
that
many.
today would have been the day where you're consistently refreshing the message boards and you're on all the websites and you're waiting for the paper to come in and tell you where, Johnny's going to play football. It's weird. Today is just it's not even a thing
It's
that
different.
we talk about.
Oh,
Crazy.
no,
So anyway,
I'm here for that.
National
Happy
Signing Day.
National Signing Day, folks.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
though.
but congrats
Absolutely.
to those who
Yeah.
are signing a letter of intent. That's really a special moment.
I remember I signed in April because I was technically a walk-on. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, come on. I said They were like, they're like, oh, the scholarship athletes have their own signing day, and then everyone else has their other one.
They discriminated against
It
you.
was a little tough.
Oh,
It
goodness.
was a little tough. But technically, I didn't even have an NLI because when you're a walk-on, you don't have a national letter of intent. Like, you just, like, sign up for school. And then they're like, all right, here's your locker. Here's a couple
Good luck.
T-shirts. And
You got admitted.
have
is what
fun.
happened.
Yeah.
Right. It was fun. No, I
Proud of you.
signed, like, my, like, admission papers. And that was like, okay, you're in. It's like, oh, okay, good.
You
Sweet.
didn't
It's
get a
official.
care package or nothing like that sent to the
Nah.
house?
I got Gear Day.
Nobody called
Christmas
you.
in August is as good as it sounds, I promise you.
They didn't give you an interview? Nobody called to interview you?
I did an interview in the Brentwood homepage. Shout out to the Brentwood homepage. I was Athlete of the Week. And this was a contentious moment in my family because it's not when I signed, it's when I was just interviewed. I think I won like a JV race when I was a sophomore because only 7 guys can run in varsity and cross country. So, like, even if you're really good, and I wasn't that good, but if you're like the 8th guy, like, you're just running JV still. And I remember doing an interview and the lady was like, so, like, where do you want to look in college? And I was like, well, my family's had season tickets to Tennessee games, like, since my dad got out of school, and, like, the arena's named after us. I say that halfway joking. We think there may be a relation. Nobody cares. I'm just going to keep going. And I remember saying, like, like, we're big Tennessee fans, like, probably Tennessee. But, like, I also, like, might kind of want to look at Missouri and Syracuse because I want to be a broadcaster. And all that was printed in the interview was, will look at continuing his college career at Missouri and Syracuse. And my dad got home and was like, what in the world? Like, when were you going to tell us this? And I was like, no, it's not. It's the fake news media. Making up stuff about local cross-country runners, and I won't stand for it. Anyway, there's
Those are
story
two good
time.
journalist goals, though.
Story time with Will. Yeah, it's fine. Overrated. This is my walk-on mentality that also applies to what we do for a living.
Undrafted gang over here, baby.
Anyway, you can turn your radios back up now. I'm done making this about me. 615-737-1045. Rhett Bryan next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson, joined now with Dean Glasscock of Save a Tree. And Dean, it's this time of the year. If people have maybe experienced the winter storms that came through, we've getting some nice days here this week. But what can you tell us about how you can help those trees and shrubs, maybe specifically the winter pruning that you guys do this time of year?
Yeah, hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's a gorgeous day. I hardly see any clouds anywhere, so it's going to be great. Get out there and enjoy it. In the meantime, if you have trees and shrubs around your home, we want you to pick up the phone and call 615-299-9999. If you have questions or you're not sure about something, give us a call, 615-299-9999. Been around for a long time, and this is a great time to be pruning your oak trees and things of that nature. And also, we're certified arborists. We do it right. We're very transparent. We're not going to do any scare tactics. There's a lot of times these guys will come out, they're not certified, and they just want to get some work. So be careful. Watch out for those door knockers. Just give us a call, 615-299-9999. Don't forget, it's saveatree.com, SAVATREE. We have a plant health care program we want to talk to you about to take care of your trees and shrubs around your home, and we can also do the pruning or removals if necessary, hopefully not. So, again, 615-299-9999. All right, y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Dean. Save a Tree, still the same excellent service and experience team you've come to expect. It is 615-299-9999, or go online to Save a Tree. That's SAVATREE.com.
9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Staff's being completed all over the NFL, and the Chargers are no different, officially having their OC and DC in the building. Greg Roman will be calling the offense after leaving his last stint in Baltimore, and Jesse Minter will call the defense after following Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. Jesse Palmer of the NFL Network reported yesterday that both guard Joe Thuney and running back Jerick McKinnon have a slim chance to go Sunday at the Super Bowl, but the Chiefs feel very comfortable with Nick Allegretti filling in on what was the best center guard triangle in football. And the Giants snagging their second former Titans coordinator of the week in Tim Kelly. Kelly will coach the tight ends in New York, working one-on-one with Darren Waller. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5. The Zone.
Fourth and final hour of the show starts right now on RKW, brewed up by 8th and Rose. I apologize if you blinked because you missed a great radio program this morning. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer. I'm Will Bowling. Rhett Bryan in studio, back from watching some draft prospects and eating some terrific Cajun food, I would imagine, down in Mobile, Alabama last week. What's up?
Hello and hello.
How are you?
There was some awesome seafood.
I love
Man,
seafood.
one night we went to Felix's Fish Camp, which is a fantastic spot there, and Mac and I had the seared ahi tuna,
Yum.
and man, we had blue crab claws, and I don't know. God, it was so. I was just talking to somebody about that the other day after we came back. I was like, you realize you're landlocked because it's like there's good seafood to be eaten and had in Nashville and in Middle Tennessee, but when it's fresh out of the ocean, it's just different.
It is. And everything on the menu looks good. Like, you could seriously just close your eyes and go like this and then point to something, and it's going to be phenomenal.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Oh.
It was good. And then also where we were sitting, you can see the Gulf right there, too.
Oh, yeah.
I think you saw somebody pull your fish out, didn't you?
Ooh.
I did, and I waited. I'm like, okay, we're just a few minutes away because it's seared tuna. They're not cooking it all the way through. It's like sashimi style, sushi style. So it'd be sear, serve. So it's like, yep, about 10 minutes from now. Good. There we go.
The one important question I have for you, Rhett, just being around the Titans radio crew and being in Mobile is, who does Coach Mack know?
Everyone
perfect.
in the history of mankind. Ray Agnew, who's the assistant general manager of the Detroit Lions, met him there last year at the Senior Bowl, and of course he sees him. Former Titans offensive coordinator Dowell Loggins seeks him out. Oh my God, I can't even. I mean, the list is so long.
The list is long.
That's why I call him the mayor of everywhere, because he is. He's never met a stranger.
You know why we walk with Coach Mack in places? It's to whoosh him along so that everybody stop talking to him.
We're actually there.
Bodyguards?
Yeah, we're actually there as the folks there.
Yeah. Come on, Mac. It's 2 minutes. We're supposed to be. Come on, Mac. Like that's what we're
10 minutes late to our dinner reservation. They're not going to hold the table. They'll hold the damn table. Don't worry about it.
After they talk to Coach Mack, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
if you're unfamiliar, Coach Mack has this saying where he'll just we'll talk to him about something or like, hey, do you know ... and he'll just say, well, who's Coach Mack know? Everybody. All right, thanks. Good. Come on. Just does a little whistle like, come on, let's go.
About what percentage of this new staff, even at the ages that they are, some young guys, right? Has he actually had interaction or run-in with so far?
Well, the wide receivers coach that's been reported.
Yep.
He gave him his first coaching job when he was his last year as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
Crazy.
I mean, when people talk about the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, there is such a thing as the 6 degrees of Coach Dave McGinnis. Seriously. Yes. I firmly believe it. I have seen it more and more every year.
I have too, man.
Love that. Rhett, lots has happened since we last spoke with you from Mobile. And 5 days ago, it was reported by Mary Kay Cabot, Cleveland.com, that the Titans were closing in on a deal to make Bill Callahan their offensive line coach. I know Kevin Stefanski has spoken about that with the media. That move not yet official, although coordinators are. But with that reported move, you get the ability to scout offensive linemen and develop the guys already on your roster at a terrific level. What was just your initial reaction to that news and just what you like the most about his resume and what he will reportedly add to this staff?
Well, first of all, it seemed like a natural thing, although when you go back to Brian Callahan's introductory presser, he says, have you thought about bringing him in? No, I haven't, because he never gave me a chance when I was coming in, and it wasn't derogatory. It was his dad, Bill, wanted him to earn his spot. He didn't want it to always be, that's Bill's boy. He gave him another job, and he's this, and he's earned it. And so now he's the HC, and now what an awesome dream that is for him. And now he can double down on that and bring Dad in, not only as a sounding board of wisdom, because he's been a head coach, and as a longtime respected assistant, one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, to be able to do that. And you look at his body of work recently in the Cleveland Browns organization. I mean, they had to remake that offensive line, and they did pretty good, didn't they?
Yeah,
I mean, he's had Jack Conklin to work with. And we think about, Dawan Jones, who we saw last year for one day at the Senior Bowl. He was a Pro Football Writers Association all-rookie team.
Yep.
For a fourth-round pick. And, yes, some of that is the freakish athletic strength and length of Dawan Jones, but some of it is credited to Bill Callahan because he's his position coach. Would you not agree?
Yeah, definitely. And the other side of it, too, from what we got from we talked to Duke Manyweather in the last hour, and we were asking the question, you go wide receiver, do you go tackle in that first round? And I was like, is this, guys have the ability to develop from this crop of offensive linemen, specifically the tackles, right? And he was just like, it was almost like he lit up when we brought up Bill Callahan's name. And the fact that, look, you can now develop and equip these guys to be better pros because they have such a superior teacher, Rhett.
Well, and I know that we're going to get into some of the excerpts from the OTP that we did with Ran Carthon, who speaks on this. And it's one of the reasons why that he and Brian Callahan did not go to the Senior Bowl last week. They wanted to get the staff in place so that they can weigh in on what types of players that they're looking for. He even mentioned it specifically as, here's what our X receiver is going to look like, as a general broad example. So you wanted to get that in place so that you can kind of move together once everything's done and the staff is assembled in this. But yeah, I think this staff is shaping together rather nicely. And Denard Wilson is defensive coordinator. You saw what Jim Wyatt wrote on TennesseeTitans.com with all the guys there at the Pro Bowl and how they spoke about, and it wasn't even necessarily, he was the defensive backs coach, but he's got Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and guys talking about him going, hey, he's the real deal.
Yeah, and that's important just because as a first-time coordinator, in terms of a defensive coordinator, there are always those questions like, is this guy ready to do this? Like specifically like handling the entire defense. And when you have players like that from different places backing you up in a player, driven league, that's probably the best kind of reassurance you can have that he'll be able to handle it. And look, it's not going to be perfect, but that you're going to be able to know what you're getting yourself into.
Absolutely. And it goes back to one of the things that Ran Carthon says in that episode of the Official Titans podcast. At the end of the day, this is still a people business. And so clearly there's people connection there for them to speak about him in a glowing way because it's a people business.
Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio with us at Rhett B Tennessee, where you can find him on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Senior Bowl, kind of wrapping a bow on that, Rhett, and who all stuck out. We spoke about the defensive backs having a good start to the week when we visited with you last Wednesday. Was there a position you felt like that won the week specifically, that had the most guys thriving at practices?
In the trenches, the big guys. The bigs, as Ramon would call it, because plenty of interior offensive linemen that stood out, tackles that stood out, and then there were pass rushers and D tackles. I mean, they had a wealth of defensive tackles in this. They had both the guys from Texas, Braden Fisk from FSU, Darius Robinson from Missouri, who's, I think, going to make somebody a really nice pro. But, yeah, you start thinking about all of the tackles and the guards and centers involved in this. They were the ones I think won the week because it was a forest there because there were a lot of trees, a lot of big men. But, yeah, there was a ton of guys that kind of stood out to me. Mike had mentioned Mike Keith had mentioned about Max Melton, the corner from Rutgers. I thought he had a really nice week down there. And Tyler Guyton, the tackle from Oklahoma, Charles Turner, the center from LSU, Tavondre Sweat, who the solar eclipse happened early because the sun disappeared when he went out there to do one-on-one. I mean, he's an enormous human being. But, yeah, and Tali Fuaga from Oregon State, he may be the one that has improved his draft stock as much as anyone coming out. Like, he's going to be, I believe, maybe like a mid-first round pick. So, like, he's up there in that conversation with Alton Fashanu.
It's unique with him, too, because you know how it is when we were down there. There's a pool of players and a bunch of reporters. We ended up pulling a few guys out. And then when they came to sit with us to interview, thank you guys for saving us.
I bet.
It's like, they did say that. Yeah, because we got Kingsley Suamatia and Tali Fuaga, Braden Fisk. We got a few of the big fellas. Charles Turner. I love the conversation with Charles Turner because I wanted to get. I really liked his style. I liked his athleticism and his length, and he plays very physical. But I'd seen this interview with him where they ask him, "Who's your comp player? Who's the guy?" He goes, "Well, the guys, the brothers that played in the league for so long, one of which was Ramon's teammate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Marquise Pouncey." And I'm like, and I did not tell you.
No idea.
That's why it makes it so good to be
I
organic.
was wondering why you were hyped. I was like, I had no idea.
Like, okay, he brought a center from LSU. What's the big deal? I don't get it. I'm like, tell Ramon who your comp player is.
Yeah.
Cool. Rhett Bryan in studio with us as we roll right along here in hour number 4. We'll get next to the conversation Titans Radio had with Ran Carthon on the OTP. Again, we've talked about this a lot this morning, and if you have not yet subscribed to the OTP, first of all, shame on you. Secondly, we forgive you. And thirdly, go do it right now. And we'll play you some of it coming up next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson and Ramon Foster for Window Nation. And, it is cold. We're getting a nice week, but, there's still some cold temps here we're going to get in the next few weeks. And that means your energy bills will be at an all-time high. And look, now is the time to replace those windows. Get 50% off all window styles and then pay nothing with no interest for not 1, but 2 full years. And now is the time you can also protect your family from the elements, lower those energy costs, and upgrade the look and feel of your home.
And no doubt about it, Kayla. With Window Nation right now, I got a couple instructions for them, too.
Yes.
If you're driving, just simply put the back of your hand to your window. Well, guess what? It's probably cool right now, okay? Because it's cold outside somewhat, and your windows in your house should not feel that way at all. And right now, you're going to probably get the January bill, and it's probably high because you could not keep that heat in because it was frigid in January. That could be because of your windows. And a lot of y'all are probably thinking to yourselves, too, oh, I need to fix the roof, and let's paint the walls and do the floors. No. I'm telling you, reach out to Window Nation so that it can instantly increase the value of your home. You will get 75% of a return of investment on your windows almost immediately, okay? So instead of doing the floors and the walls and the roof, I'm telling you, reach out to Window Nation, 866-90-NATION, or visit them at windownation.com. And be sure to tell them that Ramon and Kayla sent you to get those new windows.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast as we roll right along in hour number 4. And if you need an extra cup of coffee this morning, well, we've got you covered on a little bit more adrenaline you're going to get, because whenever Inky Johnson talks to us for midweek motivation, it's a good word you need in your life. Middle of a week. That's coming up in about 20-ish minutes, maybe 25 minutes for Inky. Rhett Bryan in studio with us, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. I want to first, Rhett, give you a tip of the cap, and you guys at Titans Radio, you guys had outstanding OTPs from Mobile at the Senior Bowl. We already have had at least one tweet, a couple others who have said, like, I binged all of the OTPs in Mobile. Like, you guys crushed it.
Well, thank you. I'm just the cog in the wheel. I hit record, and then I sent it to the proper people, and some of them I chopped up myself. But you're only as good as the crew around you. And there were some good questions and good guests out of that group. I really enjoyed having those guys on Media Day last Wednesday coming to the table, and I appreciate you helping bringing those guys there. We were going to get Tavondre Sweat from Texas, and they took him to the podium, wore him out, and said he's done. And it's like, and Ramon was on his way to the table with him.
Already established that he was ready to come to us too. He was, and they shut him down. I was Rhett. I was this close to needing bail money. Okay,
Ramon, don't sweat it.
Oh boy,
he might be there in a second to sweat that one. Okay. But I was that close, and I'm not a violent person, okay? I want to put that out there because I don't want to need that out there. But I was letting her know, like, yo, he said he was coming to us. And she was just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh.
Well, let me describe what we're talking about, because on Wednesday is Media Day, and in the ballroom of the convention center, they bring in the American team for a period of time and then the national team. And the gajillion of media credentialed people are in this ballroom. And just imagine it this way. You've walked in there with your hot wife or your hot girlfriend, and everybody wants to talk to her or hit on her. Everyone. Like, you know, it's like you strolled in there with Gisele Bündchen or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's just chaos. And everybody, and just people are queuing up and waiting. Like, there's people at podiums like you see at the combine, but then there's this mix of around these, some guy, and I felt bad, but some of the interesting prospects that are sitting at these round tables like you would at a dinner, you can pluck those and go, hey, man, I really am interested in your story. Yeah. And then you've got the small percentage of those who don't know who is what, haven't looked at headshots, don't know who they are, without looking at, like, hey, let me see your nameplate on the back of your hoodie there.
Right.
But it's crazy just how that works. And so Ramon was key in bringing us some good guests that we had already outlined on the list.
I was overly frustrated, though, and I'll be honest with you, because a lot of those folks that was taking up the players' time was asking dumb questions, right? What's been the most interesting thing you've eaten? Shut up! Like, we actually trying to get some stuff here.
I feel bad considering I just asked Rhett that 20 minutes ago.
A lot of the
players, though.
But to his point,
right,
you could tell. Like, I've seen a lot of the same folks. I saw a guy from the New York Giants radio broadcast there. I think he's their executive producer. I see some people that I'm like, okay, that's legit. But a lot of times, like, I'm Timmy with Little Timmy's podcast, and I wanted to ask you about, it's like,
and Timmy's already working on his Timmy's Mock Draft 4.0 already.
And that's why these guys that he brought to the table is like, man, you saved my bacon. Thanks.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're going to make it easy on you. We're going to make it good. We're going to have a good time. And we're going to get you out of here.
Nice.
5 to 7 minutes. Okay, cool.
Well, one of those great conversations you guys had over the last couple of weeks was with Titans general manager Ran Carthon. And we've referenced it for a lot of the show this morning. And I wanted to bring this specific answer from Ran up first about profile tape. And it goes along the lines of something we asked Brian Callahan when he sat down with us after his introductory press conference when he was on the show about what the DNA of a Titan looks like. And I thought this was an interesting answer from Ran, and it speaks to why Ran and Brian were also not in Mobile. This is Ran Carthon with you guys at Titans Radio on the OTP.
I think we come up with that. We. Because again, I'm not drawing any plays. I'm not doing any schematics. I'm not making any halftime adjustments. I think if you look at what Brian has had in Cincinnati, which is, what Zach brought over, with him from his time at the Rams. And, I was a part of that transition period when Sean McVay came in with the Rams and Zach was on the staff. And one of the first meetings we had under Sean McVay was, hey, this is what our current roster looks like. Here's our evaluations on the current roster. And let's just use the receiver position as the example. But here's what we want in our X receiver. Here's what we're looking for our X receiver to look like. Here are the traits that we're looking for. And it was an education system on what it takes to be successful in the systems that they want to run, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing. We refer to them as profile tapes. So every position will have a profile tape as to what that position specific is that we need to have for us to build a successful, side of the ball, if you will. And so that's what we're going to do moving forward. And again, it shows you the importance of being able to have the coaches here in the building and be able to do those things. And we're going to meet as a full staff. We're in a very, very unique situation in being here in this city of Nashville, where it's pretty safe to say, probably with the exception of Cincinnati, because they have a very small scouting staff, every single one of our scouts live here with the exception of 2 people. And so it makes it that much easier for us to have these meetings with our coaching staff, for us all to get on the same page, for us all to speak the same language. So as we're out there looking at players, we know what it takes to play X in our scheme. We know what it takes to play Z. We know what it takes to play F. We know what the left tackle should look like, and on and on and on. And so that puts us in a unique situation where we can quickly get on the same page, as a new staff. Because the part about, where we're at right now, we just spent the entire last spring and fall scouting for a different scheme. So now with this, our board has to reset. And our board has to reset based off of, the schemes that Brian Callahan and his staff want to run. And so we'll be, put in a unique situation where we could do that quickly because all of our people live here.
There are so many good nuggets there, Rhett, that we could spend this entire conversation on, of just one of the aspects of that answer. But when you hear him talk about profile tape, talk about the scouts being in town, and all of those different variables that he just laid out for us on the OTP, what stands out to you the most from what he just said?
Well, people get on this thing about him using the word collaborative, but that's what this is. It's getting everybody on the same page and creating an infrastructure that is user-friendly so that everyone can get to, add to, and take from the resources in the building under the same roof. And he even goes on to say in the OTP there that having those player profiles with the schemes they're designed and running and have been described, when that all comes to fruition, you'll be able to pull from, heaven forbid you have injuries at a certain position. You're like, okay, here's 3 guys that work, that have all the earmarks of what we're looking for, position specific as it relates to our scheme, so that we can, okay, he's a free agent. We can bring him in, we can try him out, and he should be able to help us.
Mm-hmm. How unique is it, too, to taking that from there, is that all their staff, in terms of scouts, for the most part, except for a couple, are here and can be face-to-face with Brian
Callahan. You're not having many
Rams.
Virtual meetings.
No.
Yeah, you can get people huddled up in the war room and get after it. That's a huge part of this. And, virtual meetings are fine, and they got us through the pandemic, but you can lose some things in translation that you wouldn't if you were sitting face-to-face, whether it's body language, facial expression, or going, hey, yeah, you seem like you weren't crazy about this guy we just talked about, player X here. Go back and tell me what are you hesitant about? What are you skeptical about?
Mm-hmm. I think it's unique hearing him say that too, as far as the profile and whatnot, and just how they're, resetting the board with the new schemes that Brian Callahan and offensively and defensively is bringing here to Nashville, to where you just somewhat say to yourself, it's okay to be selfish about what type of players that you're looking and loving on, right, Rhett? Like, that to me is just, you're not grabbing what everybody deem is good. That's one thing that that was said to us also in that conversation, is what fits Chicago Bears might not fit here. And I think that's what's super unique about this situation, is they're going to have to be selfish, and will be selfish, it seems like, on who they choose to bring inside this building.
They will, and I think once they have the intel that they are gathering and have it all in one place, it will make it easier to make those decisions and make them a little quicker than maybe you would have under a previous setup. The other part, you mentioned this too. This franchise is at a pivotal point in terms of a reset anyway. The cap, you have all this money. You have a chance to reset your board positionally as to how it relates with money going to allotted position groups, breaking it down in so many different ways. So there's so many things that are going to be reconstructed in this operationally, functionally, coaching staff, scouting staff. We had this great OTP last week with Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, about analytics and how it's going to be a 3-year process to build this thing out to what they want it to be. So there's all these things that are taking a base of knowledge and building something new on top of it so that it can be of best use and hopefully success that translates to wins versus losses.
I'm glad you brought that up about Chad Brinker, too, because there was another answer from Ran on the episode that just dropped last night about talking to college coaches and understanding a younger generation and a new generation of players and being more forward-thinking within that. And a lot of your conversation with Chad as well is about building analytics and building the infrastructure for being more forward-thinking, literally from the ground up, and the time frame with which that will have to happen. This was Ran with you guys as Ramon asks it here about hiring younger coaches and prioritizing that this offseason.
Ran, you mentioned a second ago about first-time head coach Brian Callahan, and it's a bunch of firsts that's happening around this building in the city and in the NFL, too. How's it been watching it evolve from where guys can get their first break into their 30s or later to where now you mentioned a head coach at 36, 39, 40, to where the communication on their side is big for the players, but also you back that up, the player has also changed, too. The way you guys and I came up was it was a lot rougher, I would think. Technology somewhat exposed guys to a lot of stuff and knowledge too, so you got to communicate different. How does that affect the way a first-time head coach and Brian Callahan and their connection to this younger generation will benefit this team?
Well, I think for him, if you look at it, he's been the OC. For a head coach that called the plays, right? So he had to take more of a holistic approach in being able to not only manage the staff, for Zach, but he had to touch every player, right? And in doing so, he's spending more time with the younger generation of players, which I think gives him a unique perspective on how to deal with, handle, and motivate, what we call the new age player. I feel like an old head now saying that. Again, it offers a unique perspective. I think our staff, the division of labors, we got experience, we got some youth, we got guys from different backgrounds, guys who may have been primarily in college, who've only been in the NFL a couple years. And again, it brings a unique perspective to the staff. And one thing that I did back during the fall was, spent time talking to a bunch of friends of mine that are college coaches, right, to have a better understanding of when you're bringing these young guys in, like what's the best way to connect, what's the best way to reach them, how can we do that to help, arm the coaching staff with as much information as possible, on these guys. And I think, the same should be said for the coaches, and their ability to connect, because, again, this is and will always be a people business, right? And you have to have the people right, and you have to have the right people in the building, and then the rest will fall into place.
So there's Ran Carthon again with you guys on the Official Titans podcast, being more forward-thinking within that, Rhett, and trying to build something different from the ground up. I think that is the thread I hear from that and from what you guys spoke about with Chad Brinker.
When you think about this, too, NIL has changed the game professionally. It certainly changed it in college, that and the transfer portal. Well, the trickle-up effect in this case, because you're going up to the next level of play in a professional setting, you have to take those things in consideration. Some of these guys that you're talking to may have made hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're a key position at a big Power 5 program, and they're not coming to you going, I'm just happy to be here and I'm gonna get my rookie check, and it's different. And you mix in social media and all these other things that maybe I'm too old to relate to. Like, I don't get TikTok. I think TikTok's funny, but you're more than likely not going to see me doing a TikTok. Anyway, I followed Ramon's question up with, how important is football character? He said that is number one on the list because your job now is professional football. This is your gig. You're not getting, a grad assistant coach to pick you up so you can get you to your class, on campus. This is what it is. And if you don't love it, you're probably not for us. You've got to love it. And Ramon followed that up with talking about all of the guys in the 2023 draft class, and Will Levis, Tajay Spears, all these guys that they drafted. What do they all have in common? They love football. They love the game. And so that's where it starts. If you have that strong common thread, I think you can reach a player with whatever means you need to, coaching and personal relationship-wise.
And I think that's why that's so important, to be able to reach out to the college coaches, because like you said, this is
That's
a new
smart
generation.
Thing, Kayla.
It
That's
is.
a smart
it's
thing to do.
Thinking.
Yes.
Even if there's other GMs that aren't necessarily doing that right now, and I'm sure there are, but what I like about Ran, what he's kind of exposed about himself, is he's a forward thinker. He's not just thinking about right now to make the football team better, but how to make it better for years to come.
Well, think about this. As the executive vice president and general manager of a National Football League team going into his second season in the GM capacity, it would be easy for someone to go, I'm the guy. I don't need, No, he doesn't think that way at all. He's like, how do I do my job better so that I get the best players in here for Brian Callahan so that we can win football games? Because that, at the end of the day, is what all of this is about. And why wouldn't you bend the ear of people at different levels, positions, places, sources to make that a possibility?
Well, great stuff, as always, from the Titans radio crew, and you guys crushed it down in Mobile, crushed it with Rand, and again, it feels like we're not telling the whole story of the interview, of course, because we're picking bits and pieces, but that encourages you to go listen to it. Because
and listen, the OTPs from the last week, you'll want to go hear those because there's some very interesting, entertaining young men who are going to be NFL draft picks in this. There's a fascinating conversation we had with President of Football Operations Chad Brinker, and obviously Ran Carthon, the Executive Vice President and General Manager of this thing, to give you a better idea of what they're looking for and how this thing is going to get shaped going forward. I would urge you to go listen to that. If you're a Titans fan, you want to go, how's this working? Go listen to it. You'll pick up some things out of there. You're like, wow, okay, that answers that question, and it answers three more. This is interesting. It is definitely interesting if you're a Titans fan. No question.
I just want to reiterate, too, with all the stuff we're talking about, with how they're using analytics and new science and forward thinking and all those type of new age words, you talk to this group, it's purely football.
Yeah.
They're just trying to maximize as much football you can get out of the players on the field, in the building, and production. They're finding ways to maximize what guys might have as deficiencies as strengths.
And the Titans used analytics and have been for years. They've done it. They're just doing it at a new level and maybe a newer approach to this thing.
Sure.
But you're right. At the end of the day, it's about the object that is brown and pigskin and oval and has funny bounces and decides guys' futures and paychecks and livelihoods.
Yep.
It's about the game, and they're just trying to enhance the possibility of winning.
Rhett Bryan, our guest Wednesdays on RKW at Rhett B Tennessee, where you follow him on Twitter. Rhett, thank you as always.
Great to be with y'all, and let's get some midweek motivation, I should say. I can't say it this morning. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Midweek motivation with Inky Johnson on deck as we wrap up the show.
Hey, it's Ramon Foster for Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Score big this Sunday at Scoreboard Sunday Fun Day Extravaganza from 2 to 5 p.m. Join us for an unforgettable performance by the Spasmatics as they bring down the house with their high-energy tunes. Then get ready to catch all the Super Bowl action on their massive 10 by 5 foot video screens, okay? The next best thing to being at the game. But that's not all.
Kick off your day with a delicious Bloody Mary bar to fuel your fun, and don't forget to feast on their mouth-watering menu featuring game day favorites and a full spread of tantalizing treats. After the game, stick around for live music to keep the party vibes going strong, too. And don't forget about the Nashville Palace. This week, they're bringing you the ultimate country experience with line dancing lessons and the biggest dance party on Friday and Saturday nights. But the fun don't stop there. Indulge in their full food menu packed with favorites while enjoying the live music every day on the front room. And don't miss out on the delicious brunch spread served up on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So whether you're two-stepping or just looking for some down-home hospitality, Nashville Palace and Scoreboard is the place to be.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Wrapping up the show before Inky Johnson joins us in just a moment for some midweek motivation. That is your signal that it is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, my dudes.
My dudes. And dudettes.
Still hurts my heart that none of y'all get that reference.
I saw this one. I felt like it was from somewhere. I had no idea. I thought
It
you
is
My dudes.
Wednesday, my dudes. I know Bert's heard of Wednesday, my dudes.
And they were roommates.
feel left out now.
Is it a movie?
And they were roommates.
Kind of.
Oh my gosh, they were roommates.
A short. Oh,
It's called Vine. It's back when this country
God.
used to be great.
Vine. I never had it.
That's true. That's true. I didn't have a Vine.
It's
They
what
always
TikTok
came
wants to be.
Facts.
That's what Vine is. No, it's true. Vine was TikTok before TikTok.
Oh, I agree with that.
It's the same thing.
Vine didn't last
it was
that
better.
long, though.
Why did it? Oh, Twitter and everything else took it over.
Insta.
They starting their own reels.
I don't know.
Hard times.
I can't. I'm
RIP
not smart
Vine.
enough for that. That is my TikTok algorithm. Just gives me old Vines. One time,
crazy.
in my fraternity, we went viral for making a Vine remake video. They got like 2 million views.
Oh, for real?
It's one of my 2 truths and a lie.
To what?
2 truths and a lie.
Oh, okay.
Like
okay.
everyone has the one fact about them that they always do's in 2 truths and a lie.
Okay.
That and the fact that I was illegally in Canada for 30 minutes.
How did you feel?
That's a truth.
Great.
Like a real rebel?
I know, yeah.
Dang.
Really did.
I was just wondering how
Not
you
really
feel.
illegally. I don't know.
Don't get in
Exaggerating a
trouble
bit.
with border patrol around here, okay?
Congratulations to our midday teammates at 104.5 The Zone.
Yay!
Buck Rising, Lucas Panzica, the number 2 midday mid-market show in sports. According to Barrett Sports Media, and Blaine and Mickey checking in the top 5 at number 5 as well. That is
Dominating.
2 of the top 5. That is, if you're counting at home, 40% boys and girls.
Your mom.
Of the top 5, that's right, mid-market, midday shows in sports in the United States of America.
Right here in the city.
Ballin'.
Tomorrow we get afternoon, and then after that we get stations.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we have now been revealed 3 shows on this station. All of us are top 5.
All of us are top 5.
Which bodes well for the station being maybe number 1.
If 3HL
Who's
is
to say?
number 1, we riot.
Right?
They have to. This is where we at right now.
The
We
drive
riot.
time shows that we go. Oh, we all stick together.
Oh, we all stick together. I'm just
All
saying in
support each
general.
other.
Yeah. I'd love to know what that team would be. To be us. But yeah, we top 5.
I forget what. Well, I don't know what 3HL was last year. I know Buck. We are on the Buck trajectory because Buck went from 9th to 4th to 2nd in the 3 rankings that he has had, and we were 4th yesterday for mornings. So I guess that means we got to aim for 2nd at least next year.
Got to.
Got
Stay
it.
on the Buck
Aim
plan.
high.
Keep kneecapping them. That's all it's all about.
I know.
Tanya Hodder style.
615-737-1045 if you want to join Buck and congratulate him. Coming up in a few minutes. Or just congratulate Lucas for carrying Buck to number 2. I think that's more importantly what's going on here. Or congratulate Bert as well, because Bert has a great voice in the Buck Rising show.
He does.
The best voice, some might say.
Appreciate
Not me,
you,
but some.
Bert.
I'm not saying this. A lot of people are saying this. Any show that I have touched my grubby little fingers on has been top 5. So.
I've heard that.
That's interesting.
magical.
I'm not saying that. Other people
The
are
streets
saying
are
that
saying.
in the halls. Like I was literally going to the bathroom and I heard, Bert's the best producer. I didn't know where it came from.
Worth
In the
bringing
world?
up.
I mean, we moved up to 4 after Jarvis left. So
That's such a bad name, Jarvis.
Poor Jehoshaphat.
I was thinking Jaquan, but that's neither here nor there.
Justine. Sorry, when Justine left us.
Josiah?
Yeah, him too.
We'll just call him Jordan.
Special thanks to Rhett Bryan and Duke Manyweather for joining us this morning. Another big show tomorrow. They're always big shows.
They are, man. Good guess at all times tomorrow. And we'll break down more stuff. We might need to discuss a little bit of the Chad Brinker conversation.
Yeah, let's do
maybe.
Sure. We will have Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. We will have Coach Dave McGinnis for his weekly conversation. We will all have Super Bowl bets for you in the Thursday 3. Fun will be had by all. So join us for that coming up tomorrow morning, 6 to 10, right here on The Zone. But right now, we get you motivated to continue on, to press on, to, I don't know, skip the extra cup of coffee and listen to our guy, Inky Johnson, for some midweek motivation. Always a good way to finish off our Wednesday shows. What's up, Inky? How are you?
What's going on, guys? How are you guys?
We are
Good,
great.
Ink.
You big ink now, okay? You big ink now.
Not at all, man. Not at all. Not at all, man. It's an honor to be on. You know, as always, man, you know, I'm grateful for every opportunity I get to spend with you guys. But, man, I've been getting a question quite frequently, man, revolving around process, right? Because it's a term that we hear a lot, whether it be in sports or in life. You hear people often say, respect the process, trust the process, embrace the process. And so I released a video this morning on my social media when I was talking to some athletes at the University of Tennessee. And I used to get asked a question pertaining to my injury, did I have any regrets, right? And I would always say, like, no, man, I don't live my life that way. I don't have any regrets. And then when I got children, and my little sister started growing up, and I was talking to them about sports and about life, it made me have a certain level of conviction with my thought process about the things I've been a part of. And so one day, one of them asked a question about regrets. And I said, you know what, man, I do have a regret, right? I wish I would have enjoyed the process a lot more, right? And it was like, what do you mean by that? I said, the process and the pursuit of who I was trying to become when I was an athlete. I said, I didn't always enjoy every facet of the process, the ups, the downs, successes, failures, right? When things went great, when things didn't go great, I wasted a lot of experiences that could have contributed to my development as a man. Now, I know when we look at it in totality, we can approach it with the thought process of all things happen for a reason, right? I subscribe to that thought process as well. But if somebody was to ask me, like, what do you think about when you hear the word the process, right? Like process, what comes to mind? To me, process is the voice that demands we take responsibility and ownership for situation, for circumstances, and the things that we seek to accomplish, right? When I think process, the thing that comes to mind more than anything is finish, man. Finish the task. Whatever you start, you finish. That's process to me, because the process will always be more important than the outcome. It's like when you tell young athletes who you are as a person will always be far more important than who you are as an athlete. Process over outcome. Lock into the process. It's the voice that demands we take responsibility and ownership. Let's go be great, man. Peace.